What's up, YouTube? Joined here by the Duck. And we were originally
Duck.
planning on coming live yesterday afternoon. We talked about coming live. We had so much fun streaming on the weekend. And then we got news, the unfortunate news. And neither of us really felt like coming on. And, just the sad passing of one of our own, Carlos Brooklyn fragrance lover. Duck, how are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. I think you made the right call on Sunday. Monday, sorry, saying not to come on after Carlos passed. A giant in the community. And it was very sad, untimely death. Very shocking, very surprising.
Yeah. I wanted to stream, but I didn't, I wanted to pay respects.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sit here and say I was best friends with Carlos when, obviously we had our issues, but by no means do I want to disrespect him. Actually, I have nothing but love for Carlos, and I actually planned on going to see him and, sharing tacos. There's all this talk of going to see Carlos and having tacos with him in New York, but with the lockdown and the restrictions on travel, I wasn't able to do that. So unfortunately.
Yeah.
How did you learn of the news?
It was Ashton's post on the community tab came up, and then I saw Neil was doing a stream. And then obviously everybody started talking about it because I'm not on social media, so I didn't. And then I got a couple of texts, because I sent you a message and I was like, "Is this real?" And I know you're on social media, so.
And I wasn't aware of it either. I was like, "Is this a joke or what?" And
then exactly.
Your social media, and it's the first thing that you see, and it hits you, and it kind of takes you home.
Yeah. It is a sad passing. You don't want anyone. It goes right along with my makers, Mr. Siage and Ash. And forgive us, there's another fragrance reviewer who passed away as well. There's been 5 now in the past couple of years, in the past 2 or 3 years, that have been absolutely shocking. Mr. Siage being the youngest, I believe. But 56, he was only 56. 56 is fucking nothing. Do you know what I mean? He had another. Yeah.
I know he had some health issues, I think, but, I can't say I'm completely surprised. I wasn't expecting for it to be this early, though.
Yeah.
Still, that's extremely young.
Yeah, I feel bad for his mother. I feel especially bad for Stephen from Redolescence.
Absolutely. I can't even imagine what he's going through.
Yeah, you could tell they really cared about each other.
Absolutely, they just had so much fun, and they had good chemistry, and they absolutely cared for each other in a loving way.
It's nice that the fragrance, it's the thing that joins us all together, fragrances, and it's nice that the friendships that have come up that never otherwise would have.
Right.
Like Carlos and Stephen, who found a bond over a lot of things.
Right.
And it was like music as well.
Absolutely. Kind of an odd looking couple, but they worked. None of that. They didn't let anything get in the way,
Mm-hmm.
You're
exactly right.
At different ages and very different lifestyles, but none of that mattered.
People
in a loving
friendship. When people click, they click.
Most people can only wish to have a relationship of that kind, at least from what we see on the outside. It looked really nice. I know Carlos had a lot of respect for Stephen too. There was that time I was bothering to go for tacos. I kind of, I like Carlos a lot, even though we didn't get along, and I reached out to him to go for tacos, and he's like, let me think about it. And then he got back to me, and he's like, I wanted to think about it because I wanted to discuss it with Stephen because of the things that you had said about him. And I respect that,
Yeah.
He held his friend's opinion to a high standard. And he came back and he said, you know what, Steven's okay with it. He said, do whatever makes you happy. You know, I support it. If you want to go for tacos with Eugene, go for it. And I thought that was pretty cool. You know, not too many people are open-minded like that.
Yeah, it puts things in perspective when you realize what's lost, and death's so final. I'm just glad he didn't suffer or anything like that. And he's passed away, and he will be a great miss, because he was one of the pillars of the community, wasn't he? Do you know what I mean? It was like no one's ever gonna forget that bloody
absolutely
music, the intro music. No one's ever gonna forget him.
Not only that, but just looking around social media, I'm like, it's shocking to see how many people have photos with him, how many people know him. Even the big brands, even Roja Dove, you know, posted about it. I saw.
Roger was really close to him. Have you ever seen the interviews with the two of them?
Yeah, he said Carlos was the first to accept him in America, and they had a special bond. Every time he came to the States, he would meet up with Carlos.
Yeah.
It was, you know, it was shocking to see how many people he touched.
It's just a shame that he's not here to see it, isn't it, really? Do you know what I mean? That's the thing about death, is that it's not
right.
Not everybody gets nobody gets to see what they mean to other people until they're gone.
How you affected people while you were here, right? It's tragic in that sense that he doesn't get to share in this love.
No.
What do you think it was about him, you know, that he's obviously legendary status in YouTube fragrance videos. What do you think it was about him? Was it
genuine enthusiasm? I would have said, sorry, I'm interrupting you. The genuine enthusiasm for perfume,
right.
Like yes, exactly, yeah, like a proper frag head. You could, yeah. It's you can tell when people are faking it, and there are people who fake it.
He just had everything. Like he was in the biggest city in the world, surrounded by the biggest brands. You know, you had all the perfumes you want in the world. He went to all the events. I don't think he ever turned down any collaboration, any event. He spoke to everybody. You know, he cut a lot of people off, but if you came back to him with an olive branch, I think he was always willing to accept or work on it. At least from what I saw, you know, on the outside. He hung out with some of the biggest reviewers, you know, in terms of numbers, but I don't think any of them have the type of effect that Carlos had on people.
Yeah, he appealed to that thing. He appealed to the thing that joins us all, and it's the love of the perfume, isn't it? You know what I mean? I don't want to reduce a man down to just perfume, but as far as we're concerned, that's what joins us all together. And me heart, honestly, like I feel, because I think his mother's still alive, and how Mrs. Powell must be feeling must be absolutely terrible. I can't imagine how Stephen again and Stephen's wife. I'm sure they must be devastated. But we can't break. I mean, you can't deny literally the amount of happiness and the amount of like enthusiasm he brought, because that's what it was for me. The enthusiasm he had, and it was funny. I said this to you on the day that he passed. The one perfume I blind bought because of Carlos, right, was real patchouli. If you go back on that video, I'm sure I left a comment on that video, or I said something, and I've ended up buying real patchouli by Bois 1920 because of Carlos. And I swear on my life this is true. The day he died, I was wearing real patchouli by Bois 1920. And it's just one of those strange little things that happens in life, one of those little coincidences that I wore real patchouli yesterday as well, Jeremy. And that's the reason I own real patchouli is because of Carlos. And I'm not bullshitting. If you go back and see that video, because the video that he did on real patchouli, he also reviewed another fragrance And I remember thinking, I'm not too keen on that other fragrance, but I fancy that real patchouli, and it's fucking glorious as well. How many times have I hassled you to buy that?
Pavarotti.
And that was that. Yeah, Pavarotti as well. Yes, Pavarotti, real patchouli. They've both got patchouli in. Sadly, didn't get to smell Pavarotti because I think he would have suited Pavarotti. He was a little Pavarotti in his own way, wasn't he? With the singing and the singing and the music. Gregarious.
I think part of the love that he got was he was very emotional, and he showed it.
Yes,
he showed his emotion on his sleeve, regardless of he loved something or hated it. He didn't hide back or pretend to be something he wasn't, and it was very apparent, just by watching him. And he, like everybody else, just wanted to be loved, right? Just searching for love.
Yeah,
that's it.
And he found a lot of. I think he got a lot of happiness from his channel and from the interaction, and from the interaction he got with like people, because of obviously because the ladies he had on his channel were friends.
Right.
Like he didn't just bring them in out of nowhere. Do you know what I mean? Like these were the women he worked with, and I feel bad for them as well. I'm very sorry for them as well, because they'll be missing a huge part of their lives now.
Absolutely. To think of, like, if he had another 10 years, what he could have possibly done, or what we could have seen. It was always something special, be it a live stream or a recorded video, but he was just everywhere. Every day you can almost expect him to upload something on social media, something funny or exciting, or even even the love that he shared for his cats. It was admirable.
Yes, that's right. Jean and Claude, named after Jean-Claude Eleanor. That's right.
Is that true?
That is actually true. Yes, I swear that is true. He named his cat.
I didn't know he was a Jean-Claude Elena fanboy of that status, but I know he loved Tom Ford.
Yeah, Amber Absolute, wasn't it?
Right.
Amber Absolute. That was his favorite. That was his favorite. Perfect. That's right. He said that's what made me buy real patchouli. Here it is. He said the only 2 bottles in his entire journey since he started collecting loads of perfumes, the only 2 bottles he'd ever finished in that time were Amber Absolute and real patchouli. And I thought, bloody hell, because I can't get Amber Absolute, I'm going to get real patchouli. If you've finished a bottle of that off, and I'm telling you now, mate, it's absolutely glorious. It's one of, if not my favorite. I mean, it's right up there. It's so syrupy and gloopy and warm. It's very warm. He seemed like a warm man as well. Like, he liked these warm, because Amber Absolute's a warm perfume as well. He seemed very warm, a very, very emotional, heart on his sleeve.
Absolutely, very emotional.
I just think, I think he'll be a bad loss. We'll miss him. We'll miss my makers, because that obviously when you hear Carlos pass, it's like you go back and you think, fucking hell,
they're all kind of sudden.
Yeah,
they don't
exactly.
They don't give us time to say goodbye, but I'm sure he's watching now. I'm sure he's around,
Yes, that's right. No pressure. If you Carlos watching the stream,
consciously he's here. It's just the mind and the body that go. It leaves us, but spiritually he's still here, and I'm sure he appreciates all the love and support. And it must.
I will absolutely. It's one of those things. You say scent memory. It's one of those things, and I will always, because even before he's passing, I always thought the only reason I've really got this is because of Carlos.
Yeah.
And it's always, when I smell that, I will think of Carlos.
The thing is, as sad as it is and tragic to lose him, there's a lot of beauty that's come out of this, and just seeing how everybody's come together and reflected and shared his life. I think it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. He had to remember
it's
the
a
good
very
stuff.
warm feeling right now, and I don't ever remember seeing this before in the community.
No,
and he's
no, I know
definitely,
what you
I
mean.
think, not to take away from the others, but he is the biggest loss from the YouTubers. I know Mickers was huge, but I think
Mickers was more shocking. Mickers was more shocking because it happened literally overnight. Carlos had been ill a couple of times, and he talked about that. But Mickers, my Mickers was like bang, and he was gone. But Carlos, I know it was sudden from Carlos as well, but there had been shock. Mr. Search was big as well because he was so young. Ash, and I can't remember the other name of I think he was a South American reviewer. Forgive us, I cannot remember his name. It'll come to us at some point because me and Greggy Boy were talking about it. He was a gentle soul. I'm just looking at some of the chat now. I've just clapped eyes on the chat. Hello, everybody.
We had kind of an on and off relationship. When I first came out, he reached out and he's like, he invited me to do a couple of collaborations with him, those Christmas videos. And as I was
these Christmas videos.
Yeah, so I did 3 or 4 of them, and I was never excited to do collaborations, but there was something about Carlos I liked, and I always volunteered, sure. And then something happened. I don't know what happened. I can't recall like a specific.
It's just event. It's now you look back on it, it seems so trivial, doesn't it? Always when things like this happen, the things that people argue over are so trivial in the big picture, and it feels because. And it would have been nothing, and I'm sure he didn't hold it against him. He didn't. And it was the same with Joey last night. I was watching Joey's stream last night, and I felt I watched it in the morning because I was asleep last night, and I just felt so bad because I knew him and Carlos were really close, and then they hadn't spoken for the last year or so. But the little things,
we had gone years without speaking, actually.
Yeah.
I was like just watching him, and I was like, you're almost drawn to him in this weird way. And he was doing a live stream one day, and I was like, I want to reach out, but I want to do it in like this kind of grand way, and I want to invite him for tacos. So as he was live streaming, I had contacted a friend for his phone number, and I wanted to text him or call him during the middle of his live stream. And I got his cell phone number, and I texted him. I was like, "Hey, Carlos, it's me, Eugene." And right in the middle of the live stream, he's like, "What's going on here? Why is Eugene texting me? How did he get my number?" And I was like, "Hey, Carlos," like I texted him again, "Let's go for tacos." He's like, "What is this guy?" He didn't know whether I was serious or joking or trolling or if it was even really me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So after the live stream, after the live stream, he had connected and we talked quite a bit, and we talked about meeting up in New York, but with the whole lockdown thing kind of shut that down really quick because it was about a year ago. It was about March of last year that this had happened.
Yeah.
So,
I think I remember that. Oh, fucking hell, Max Huesler's in the house. Where have you been? How you doing? Max Huesler's an OG as well. Max Huesler's been doing this for a very long time.
We were just talking about how I miss his Sunday night uploads.
Yes, that's right. You were.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't go anywhere. Come back. Do more videos, Max. How's your brand? How's your brand going, Max? The last I heard, you were becoming a perfumer.
Yeah, he was talking about doing his own brand.
Yeah.
Doing everything from scratch.
That's right. I'll be back.
I'll be back.
It's a threat.
Well, I hope so. I'd be happy to see that.
Absolutely. So, with
you
respect
want to come on,
to Carlos,
Max?
Yeah, does anyone want to come on?
You want to come say
Oh,
hello?
Stu.
Anyone want to come on? George? Serapio?
Serapio won't come on. You should, though. But I don't think they will. You tell them a tale of my lost Rogers. We're going to talk about you. They could tell them the tale of my lost Rogers. I've got 2 Rogers because that was the original plan for yesterday. When we were going to stream originally, we were going to compare Mal to Roger, and I was like, all right, because you asked us if I had any Rogers.
Yeah, which is almost an unfair comparison, right? But just for argument's sake,
I've lost me Rogers. I cannot for the life of us find these 2 Roger Dove bottles I've got. Hello, hi George. So these I've got a couple of. If anybody finds any stray Roger Doves kicking about, let us know, because I've lost a pair.
I think if somebody finds them, you're gonna lose them for good.
Fucked. Yes. I don't know. What did you wear today?
I wore, well, interestingly enough, by Carlos Benaim. This is Music for a While. And I think this is my latest kind of fetish. I wore this 2 days in a row now. You can see the dent I've put in there. Quite a bit of a dent. I've used about 20% of this now, and I'm absolutely loving it. It's very sparkling. What's that?
I struggle with it. I know. Sorry, you were saying it's very sparkling.
It's very fruity and sparkling, almost like dried up pineapple juice. It's very
like you've spilled some.
Like I can feel it sticking, and it's got a really nice contrast of dry lavender and patchouli and a nice ambery base. Really nice. I hated it when I first got it. It was just overwhelmingly sweet, sticky, sugary, sweet, and I didn't get any of the patch or lavender.
I get massive lavender for it. I know what you mean. It is literally like dried, like as if you've left like some pineapple juice in a bowl for a couple of days.
Yeah,
and like almost all of the water's evaporated, and all that's left is like fruit, like pure sugar.
Absolutely.
Left, but with pineapple essence in it. That's what it smells like.
It's got some. It's either mandarin or tangerine, and it's like it kind of reminds me of being out at a picnic and just like getting all that mandarin juice or pineapple juice on a picnic table, and coming back a few hours later and it's all dried up, sticky. You can't even clean it off.
Yeah, like you've eaten a pineapple with your hands and you haven't had anything to like wash your hands off with.
It's one of the stickiest fragrances I've come across.
Sticky icky.
Yeah, that's what I wore today, and I haven't sprayed this yet, but I've got this out for tonight. I don't have Amber Absolute, but I think this is probably one of the closest things to it by Tom Ford, and I think Carlos liked this a lot as well.
What's that?
This is Sahara Noir.
You've got Sahara Noir?
I do.
Oh my god, that's outrageous. That's a proper unicorn now. That is very hard to find.
This goes for extreme amounts of money, doesn't it?
Yeah, it goes for silly amounts of money. Do you think it's worth silly amounts of money?
It's in that same family as Amber Absolute and Tobacco Oud. I think it's a really good fragrance. I don't know. What is it going for?
Hundreds at least. It's not an easy find either. It's not just that it's expensive. When you do find it, it's very hard to actually find in the first place. It's excuse me,
300. I ran into a bottle of Gucci Pour Homme 1 recently, and the guy wanted $400 for it, which I thought that was excessive.
That's extremely. 400 US or Canadian?
It was Canadian, but still, it's still a lot of money.
Yeah, it is a lot of money. To be fair, it's like £220. That's a lot of money for a perfume. I'm not sure I would pay it. In fact, I know I wouldn't pay it. There's a lady in France who offered me a bottle at about it was £140, but it was like a tester. It didn't have a lid. It didn't have a lid, and it had about 10 ml missing. And she offered it for £140. I was just like, nope. I was like, to be honest, I wasn't even sure I was a fan the first time. I've got the original pour on from 1974, so I can't imagine it beating that. So, I mean, Mr. Ford's time. It's all based around the. It's all based around Tom Ford, isn't it? Really, because it's the same thing as. It's the same thing as YSL. He's YSL fragrances.
Reeve Ghost goes for extreme amounts of money as well.
Well, I know. I just bought it. I just bought it. I managed to get one at a decent price off one of your friends. So thank you very much.
I remember getting Reeve Ghost at Walmart for $25, brand new in the box, sealed, like Walmart. Yeah. Original tin can bottle.
Yeah, see, I think it's not worth much more than that. I've bought it. I paid about £125. And it's about 220 Canadian I paid for it.
And at the time, I was like, these are so damn cheap. I should go back and buy the rest of They had several more, and I never did. Because I never thought I would use them all. And I won't.
No.
I won't. It would just be hoarding.
Yeah. The idea is to sell them on, but you never actually get around to selling on your backups, do you?
No.
Do you know what I mean? It's for people like me and you, like really what we should do, the sensible thing, but we can't. Do you know what I mean? The pull of the hoard is too strong. It's too strong. It's the idea of having something that other people don't. Hello, Arnold. Arnold, this is the stream that I told you about last night that we didn't do.
We were planning in the afternoon yesterday to stream, and then it was like 3:00 when somebody said that Carlos had passed away. I was like, oh man, that wouldn't feel right. Like, no. But let's go on. We keep doing things, but at the same time, we can pay our respects. So if you guys want to talk about Carlos, we can. If you want to talk about whatever you want, we can.
Yeah, anything you want. What was I saying there about backups? I've got backups of me backups. I've got of the stuff that I love.
I was never into hoarding of backups. The only thing I really did, I bought 3 backups of Guerlain Cologne 68 when it was discontinued. And since I've kind of given them away as gifts. I never even kept them.
Yeah.
It's like I'm never going to use these all. And I got them for reasonable price, so I just started giving them out.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I've got about 4 bottles of Pavarotti backup. That's mainly to cover myself because of the amount of decants I've given out of it. I keep shoving it down my friends' throats, so I've ended up using half a bottle, and I haven't actually worn half a bottle's worth. Entirely my own fault. So you should get Pavarotti. It's great, but I think I've pushed it so hard now. I think you're just not going to get it now, just because I've pushed it too. I'm scared as well that if you do get it,
I might even have a bottle. I just don't want to admit it to you because I like when you keep telling me to buy it.
You like watching us suffer. You like watching us flail around.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what you mean. Oh, I need to lie down. Back's hurting. I've got bottles of stuff all over the place. What's the chat doing? I have 20 backups of Sahara Noir, but no, I won't sell you on Jeremy Hines, you rascal. You rapscallion.
For fougères, I actually prefer my $25 Reeve Gauche than my $300 Invasion Barbar. And I'm not even joking.
Yeah. You really, the Invasion Barbar, I think you were saying something about MDCI.
I just feel like it's just way too perfect, It's just so perfectly blended that you can't separate the notes. Everything seems like it's one.
Yeah. It's like really, really slippery ice. You can't get a grip on it.
Right. Yeah,
that's
exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's um, it's a bit of a nightmare. I know what you mean when you say that you can't separate things out. That I think the art of blending used to be that you could like we'll talk about like a style now of like
Right.
of different types of blending. The art of blending used to be back in the 80s is that you could smell the progression, you could smell the beginning. Like every story had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you could smell the separation of the notes. And I think now the idea is to blend everything so well that you can't smell the beginning, the middle, and the end. I think there's a
Well, with Invasion, it's just so like meshed together, so not like perfectly. Everything's rounded off. There's no, it feels like there's no start of a note or no finish to it.
Yeah,
And there's not much of this either. It's much more fluid.
yeah. It's I'm trying to think of many vintage perfumes that I've got that I like that, but I can't. I think it might be like a more recent sort. That's why I was talking about like the styles being different. Sorry, just lying down. Why the styles are different, you know what I mean? I don't know if it's the ingredients that make it so that you can't sell them, or if, that you can't blend it that way, or if it's because the if it's because the styles changed. Like the old ingredients were the old ingredients were such that it had to be blended that way. Like you couldn't make it all mesh together even if you wanted to.
Right.
Or whether it's the new ingredient, or whether it's just a styles clash. I don't really know. It's interesting that it's interesting to like see the differences. That's what I like about it. That's one of the things I like about Fragcom so much. Nothing ever gets out of hand that you can't appreciate other people's differences. It's one of the best.
Well, you got to be open to new stuff.
Yes, that's another feature of the com as well. The amount of new stuff. There's so much scope for like investigation. Someone's talking about Hubergon Fougere Royale. I got that about just before Christmas. It's fabulous. Absolutely.
I've never smelled that.
It's very nice. It's a Fougere. It's very Fougere. It just does it very well.
That's the first Fougere, isn't it? In the really nice flacon.
It was, what happened is it was Fougere Royale by Hubergon was the first Fougere ever, and then they went under and far away and they never came back. And then in 2010, I think it was Roger Dove that brought them back. He's part of the effort to bring it back. He was involved in the brand. What's this?
It's just a funny comment that got me by surprise. Now, I'm not hating on it. So we're hating on perfumes being done too well. How ironic. Well. It does sound like that.
Yes. Yes. I know what you mean.
We're trashing perfumes because of their shitty blending and cheap materials. And here's something that's too good and it's a problem.
Yes, that's right. Well, like Goldilocks. It's like, that's too good. I can't. It's just like the reverse Goldilocks. I can't handle it. It's too good.
He called me out on that. Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever happened to Girl on Nahima? I know a place that sells Nahima.
Well, then the Nahima has been discontinued, and the bottles are being repackaged, so there might be out of stock until they're restocking. I don't know.
The ones I've seen on this website are the ones that came in those gold. They look like Emmental cheese bottles because they've got loads of holes in them. It's like a gold flacon that it's like the flacon's gold and it's got holes in, and then you put the perfume inside it. Do you know which one I mean?
Yeah. What smells like burnt pubes? Nahima?
Nahima smells like burnt pubes.
Burnt pubes.
Burnt pubes. That's very specific. Like the burnt pubes. Do burnt pubes smell any different to burned arm hair?
Or like a torch to it? Torch is quicker.
Yeah. It's got like a civet note. Oh, how many people are here?
120.
Fuck. We were just talking about it the other night, the amount of people watching. You get a nosebleed. I'm not used to this amount of attention. Eugene's used to it. There's loads of lurkers in the background as well listening. Lurkers, like Joey calls them. People who just watch and don't say anything. I bet Galen's lurking. I bet Galen's having
I'm sure
a right
Galen's
old
at
look.
work. Probably watching, but not being able to comment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. You can say anything you want about him. We can't do anything about it. Yeah.
No, we had him on Saturday.
We did. He came in and started discussing stuff, even though he said he wouldn't come on. I wonder what Thomas is doing.
I'm not sure if you were here. One of the best streams that this channel has had. It was really outrageous. I think I had Joey Cannoli, Dana from Nose, the Dog Man, Sultan Pasha. I think that was all in one live stream at one time.
And now you're stuck with me.
And now I got you.
That's a hell of a fall from grace. That's fall from grace for you.
No, it was good. You had like all walks of life, all different tastes in perfume, all different perspectives and opinions and emotions running. And then it just ended up Joey and me, and Joey goes off on the tangent, and the stream had to get pulled off.
Oh yeah,
it's all good though. There's Galen. Galen's in the house.
Yeah, he is. I saw him there. I was getting the truth about Galen, and then he arrived, so we can't tell anyone. I won't tell anyone about the seedy motels. Kareen, I am from Newcastle in England, and that is my accent. Not a lot of people say it's lovely, so thank you.
So what else?
Get the girl in. Yeah, sentient man, Rajif is saying, get the girl on SA back on if she wants to come on the sales associate from Girl On Yard on.
Oh, Charlotte.
No, that's right. You should get her back on.
Yeah,
she's not game anymore.
Sure. I think Serapio would like that.
Why? Is he a sex case?
He's our biggest fan.
Oh dear. Yes, Serapio, I am not. Honestly, I am not smells fishy. This has been accused. I've been accused of this. Cambodian. I'm not Cambodian either. I've been accused of being smells fishy a few times, but I'm not. If I was, I would just say especially if you caught us. But I'm not.
There he is. There's the dog. We were just talking about you, John. Saying how
we were just talking about you, John.
You were on. I think he was on with Joey Cannoli and Sultan Pasha and Dana. I can't remember, but I think it was the same day. I'm sure these guys all remember. They have great memory. My memory's horrible, eh?
Yeah, that's right. You do need prompting a lot. It's all that welding you've been doing without any eyewear on.
It's plugging.
That's right. It's got rid of your memory. Oh,
somebody left a comment on the last video saying the next Frederick Mull's going to be by Anne Filippo. What do you think about?
Yes, and do you know what it is? I've never heard of Anne Filippo in my entire life. It was news to me that, and then I went out and found a biography to her, and I think I sent you that, didn't I?
You may. I don't think I've seen it though.
No. Oh lordy da. Yeah, I've got absolutely no idea who she is or what she's done. It's a strange one because we were talking about who we would like to see do.
Coach, Diesel, Donna Karan, Escada, Giorgio Armani, Givenchy.
That does not sound promising.
Jimmy Choo, John Malone. L'artisan. She did a bunch of L'Artisans. La Via's Belle. But I think La Via's Belle was collaborated on by, it was three big perfumers. I think it was European, Polge, and Anne Filippo all together.
Jesus. Can you imagine the meetings? Do you know, like when like perfumers, like when there's like a few of them worked on a perfume. I know Mark doesn't think very highly of it. Mark says whenever he hears that like a few perfumers have worked on a perfume, he says he thinks it makes it sound like
it just gets regurgitated or pushed to the back.
Yeah,
that's kind of what happened with Acqua di Gio and how Alberto got his name on it. That was pushed around, and he was kind of the last one to work on it. Oh, she did,
and then he just made it,
and a couple of millions.
Oh, that is not looking good.
Pure excess.
You just wouldn't admit to doing Invictus, would you?
Lots of commercial stuff.
Yeah.
Yves Saint Laurent. She did L'Homme. And La Nuit de L'Homme.
She did La Nuit de L'Homme? That's not right. She didn't do La Nuit de L'Homme.
It says here, Anne Filippo and Dominique Ropion.
Which La Nuit de L'Homme did she do?
How many La Nuit de L'Hommes do you know? She also did Libre and Libre Intense by YSL, the woman's fragrance, which I really like. And that was done with Carlos Benaim as well. I really like that woman's perfume.
So I haven't smelled it. In fact, I may have smelled it, but it's not something I would wear. I'm one of these dinosaurs.
It's a really nice fougere.
Is it really? Well, maybe I will wear it. I'll tell you one of the main ones that that I really like a female fragrance that I would wear is Eau de Lancôme.
I know, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, it's got oat moss in it. So surprise, surprise. I think it's quite nice, but it's very citrus at the top, and then it's very green at the bottom for a lady's fragrance.
I wouldn't not wear a fragrance just because it's marketed to women. I would not wear it because I don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a vintage Samsara from the early 90s. And the only reason I struggle with that is the jasmine.
Woman's.
Sorry?
You can't even consider that like a woman's proper fragrance if you're looking at the stuff being released today.
No, you're right. No, it's not. Not at the stuff being released today. But it's marketed towards women. That's more what I was getting at. If Samsara was released today, I would still like it, even if it was marketed towards women. Of all the classic Guerlains, that's probably my favorite. If you could call Samsara one of the classics, would you put Samsara in the same breath as like Jiki and Shalimar? Do you think it's in that company?
I wouldn't deny Samsara. It's a beautiful perfume. Do I love it as no? I do prefer Jiki more than Samsara, or Shalimar more than Samsara. Hang on, I'm gonna let Daniel on. Daniel's here. He's gonna join us for a little bit, and you guys probably all remember Daniel. Whoa!
Oh shit!
Daniel's got some hardcore aliens in his house. I'm not
sure. Yeah, that's right. He's got some hard vocalizations there.
Daniel, you got some audio. You wanna click off and try coming back?
What the flatly turns on Filippo. Galen makes a good point there.
These guys are on fire, eh?
That's right.
Let me try adding
the chat's more. Okay.
Yeah, let me try adding Daniel.
Bear in mind, I've got earphones in.
Are we better or worse? How are we doing?
I hear you.
Better, but
too loud. Is this better?
No, it's good.
It's better. It's better. It's better. You seem a little bit far away, though.
Sure. How's this?
There you go.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry, I didn't want to blow up the mic. Usually it's too soft. So
you're getting some compliments here already, Daniel. That didn't take long.
Cool.
That's from Serapio Silva.
Fan club. Nice.
You have some fanboys in the house.
Cool. So,
how you been?
Serapio. Yeah, good. It's been a while. We haven't chatted in a while.
Yeah. Did you go away or something? I saw you posted some pictures. Were those from the past or you?
Yeah. I just I had a few saved pictures and I was like, I should put these
just
up.
pretending like you're on vacation or manifest.
And so whenever I'm like posting, I can be like, I could be there. That like I could be somewhere else right now. But yeah, no, actually we try to go away like a couple times a year and we both have just missed being able to travel. So it's sort of, I occasionally now flip through my old photos and just sort of try to picture what it's like to be there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How's everything else? How have you been?
Good, fine. Nothing terribly exciting. I think just like the COVID thing, everyone's sort of cooped up at home and hanging out, and it's it's a lot of just, I don't know, tidying up the house and cooking a lot of meals and trying to, I don't know, get in shape and a lot of Netflix.
Awesome.
Yeah. I've been catching up on more videos actually, which has been great. It's nice to see you like doing more regular videos and just sort of, I don't know, a good mix of like fragrance, personal, a bit of everything. It's nice. It's good to see.
Yeah, it's good to mix it in, Otherwise, it gets a little bit stale.
Well, I just think like, it's not a knock to the traditional channels, but there's so many people who just do reviews. And like, you can watch reviews and you can read reviews and there's people who want to see that. But I think it's much more interesting to sort of get to know someone and sort of, like when I was selling fragrance, the question I would really ask people is, what are you looking to get out of this experience? Like, what do you think fragrance is? Why do you want a fragrance? Like, what story are you looking for it to tell? So I think people who are interested in fragrance, like whether you're a collector or you're sort of into it, it's more than simply what are the top 10 compliment getters. Like, I think you get past that level pretty quickly, and then you sort of, what is the story that this tells? What is the adventure that I can go on? And so to me, I love hearing your stories of your personal relationship or how this fragrance makes you think or feel or reflect or, and so to me, in a way, it's sort of like, I think of these fragrances as a composition, as a story that's been written. And so you're reading, and you have to like learn how to read the story, but you've basically got this little time capsule where someone sat and they thought about a concept and an idea and they wrote a story and they put it in a bottle and then you picked it up later. And you have to learn how to read that story and figure it out. And it's like years later, even if it's been discontinued or the perfumer's gone or the house, the company's defunct or, all these years later, it's like picking up a novel, and sort of transporting yourself to the story and the adventure that they want to take you on.
Yeah, good point. I always have a relationship or a memory of the first time I tried a fragrance, and I try to catalog that and see how my tastes or opinions even differ, like a couple months down the line or a couple wearings, and see what I can notice differently. So
I think it's everything from like the more you wear it, maybe you find pieces in it, but also where you are in your life and what you need, you pull from it. Like it offers, like if it's a good composition, it offers many things, and what you need, it offers you when you need it, And so maybe it's like, the whole thing of like listening to a song, when you're happy, you listen to the melody, and when you're sad, you listen to the lyrics, but it's the same song, but it's sort of like it was all built in there and you take from it what you need. So I just think it's interesting that like,
sure, it can mean different things when you need it to.
Yeah, and I think that's something, I don't know if it's always the same where every generation says, oh, my generation was better, But I feel like the older fragrances were like that. I feel like there was more story and there was more nuance and detail and complexity, and there just seemed to have been a better comprehensive story in them, that today's ones don't seem to have that level of depth somehow.
Right. I definitely agree that they're different. I know Rich will agree that they're better as well back in the 80s. And I think for him, it's I don't want to speak for him, but I think because they were louder and richer, today they're much fresher and cleaner. But we're also in the
it's the standard of the ingredients as well. The standard of ingredients now is not good. It's synthetics, whereas back in the day it was always like naturals. Almost everything was naturals. I think there was now you get I say you get now 80-20 towards like synthetics 80, naturals 20. Back in the day it was synthetics 20, naturals 80, and because so many naturals were still allowed to be used. And I think that's why that shift in that balance is why older perfumes are better and hold up better than newer perfumes do. I think it's almost, and I'll tell you, sorry.
To the creation that's not there anymore. I think, they say like the synthetics are the bones and the naturals are the flesh. And so you can use these sort of synthetic molecules if you're using them as structural elements, to lay out the framework of a composition. That's fine and that's okay. But if you're using the synthetics as the fragrance themselves for their aromas, like occasionally you'll get an interesting chemical that makes a smell that you couldn't otherwise get. And so there are arguments where they can replace a natural ingredient, or, so there's environmental reasons. And so there's all kinds of things like that. Aging in the bottle that the synthetics won't do. But generally speaking, it's kind of a false dichotomy, because you sort of need both. You basically use the synthetics for structural elements, and then you use the naturals to sort of fill it out and round it out and create really the sort of textures of it. Unless you're very good with synthetics. And so I think like Miles' line, he's able to do that sort of thing. Or like Elena, where he's very good at working with those sort of things that would otherwise be difficult to use. But I think the new up and coming stuff that we're seeing, they're just relying too much on it, and they're just using the synthetics as the fragrances themselves, and they're not learning how to sort of fill them out in between and sort of, write an epic novel. I think they're just writing a very sort of short story that's very clickbaity, and the story doesn't really go anywhere after that.
Daniel, are you talking about Frederic Malle or perfumes in general?
No, perfumes in general. So I'm saying Frederic Malle to me is an example of a line where even if they are using synthetics, they're very good and they're using them very precisely, and they're probably also using good quality synthetics.
Right.
Whereas today, I think the work that's coming out, they're just relying on the synthetics for performance and for the smells themselves, but they're missing the richness and the quality and the thickness and complexity which you would get with better naturals, but they're much harder to work with.
Yes, I would agree with that. There's a lot of skill being lost as the gene pool of perfumers is concerned has been diluted massively. Thank you very much, Anna. As the gene pool of perfumers has been diluted massively, as has the knowledge. It isn't. It in a lot of ways it's been democratized, which is fair enough. As a principle, it's a lovely thing, but when it's a closed shop, the knowledge stays much more like pure. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to say that people are coming in with like these new fancy ideas and how dare they try and change everything and they make everything. But what you can do now, I remember Peter from Fragrance View saying this about a Nasamato perfume. You can buy a ready-made base for a perfume now, right? And as a synthetic, you don't have to build it anymore. It can come as one aroma chemical, and it will give you like 3 or 4 different facets. And he said for the amount Nasamato is charging, the amount they must be paying for their ingredients compared to how much they're charging is a bit outrageous. Because he said the base, I'm sure it was like Pardon, or it was one of the quite popular Barrow Onda. It was one of the popular ones, and he said this is a synthetic base, and it is one aroma chemical, and this hasn't been blended very well. This is just a couple of aroma chemicals. I'll tell you who's the worst for this. Who is the worst of, like, the worst sinner as far as is concerned? Pierre Montal. Pierre Montal cannot blend for shit. Pierre Montal puts three fucking synthetic ingredients in one bottle and says, "Bang, there you go. Bang, there's another one. There's another one. There's another one. Just buy the latest one." And they're all worth. I mean, those perfumes are worth like less than £1 each.
Yeah, I've always found that the Montels are very clunky in their compositions. Like, they always smell to me like someone took a few bases and they kind of just shoved them together, and they didn't really have the training to sort of know how to turn that into something. They sort of just bought off the shelf things and kind of stuck them together, and they're kind of clunky compositions. So
I used to say you can smell the lines in it. You can smell the straight lines. Absolutely. Where he's just massive brush strokes.
It's like they use a sledgehammer to blend them together.
Yeah, yes. I think the appeal of why people like them is they get swayed by a cheap price and a huge performance. So basically, they're cheap and they're really loud, so they must be really good. And what they're missing is they don't understand the nuance and the subtlety and the enjoyment of a fragrance that doesn't have massive projection, that there's actually something about that that's appealing, and to recognize good design, that there's something like that too. So I think it sort of appeals to people who are just kind of getting into this, and their idea of fragrance is, I'm into fragrance and I want everyone to know. It's like wearing, branded clothes that have, logos all over it. Like, until you sort of learn to be a little more comfortable with what it is you're working with and learn to appreciate a little more subtlety or elegance or nuance, and you can appreciate those things. I think that's sort of the appeal of lines like that, but hopefully people kind of move past that.
I get the feeling that Montal, like the people that buy and wear Montal, they're not the fragrance geek enthusiasts that we are. Maybe maybe they are, but it's more they are looking, to get noticed with their fragrance. They want something loud and obtrusive and
they're big, like that. I mean, what it smells like? It smells like you're wearing an aftershave. It's like a perfume. It smells like you're wearing a perfume, and it smells like they're almost like deodorants. Do you know what I mean? It smells like something, and people are quite happy to smell like something. At least I've got something on. Do you know what I mean?
There's a Lynx, or Axe Lynx body spray of fragrance.
Yeah. It's like if people think that's what, if like they're a step up from that, like I'm not even sure they're a step up. They're just like, because I mean, this is something I would go back to Carlos. Carlos always used to say as well, people who make shower gels and people who make like deodorant smells are perfumers. Perfumers make those smells as well. And he said that on many occasions, and it was like, but they're not charging fucking £200 or like £100 or £50 for the bottles, though. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
in fairness to lines like that, like I'll even put, say, Bond Number 9 in that kind of category as well, where it's a lot of style over substance. I will say that there are a few in the line that are winners as ideas, but I think the execution has sold them short. So like there definitely are 5 or 10 Bond Number 9s or Montels, which are good fragrance concepts that are interesting. But again, I think the quality of the actual composition has just let it down. And so I have a couple of them as decants, and I wear them, but I go, I like the idea of where this was trying to go, but I just wish there'd been a better quality work or ingredient behind it.
Daniel, as somebody who worked for Byredo, where do you think they fall in line amongst the niche category?
I think so. It's been a few years. The line has definitely expanded a lot, and they've also expanded a lot ancillary-wise, like with because it's Detique, right? So they do a lot of lotions and washes and that kind of stuff. Wasn't as much when I was around, and when I was there, the line had like 20 fragrances, and I think maybe it's now probably closer to 30 or 40. So it's grown quite a lot. I think that, yeah, same thing with that line. I think it's very much 80-20. I think there's like 5 that are really the top sellers, and I think the rest, the 15 others who are like okay, and they'll sort of find someone who likes them, and then there were kind of 5 that were just duds that nobody liked and wouldn't, and I think they've been discontinued at this point. But it's pretty much like Belle Freak, Gypsy Water, and then you'll get a couple of fan favorites. But it's sort of a very 80-20. I think they are an example where the quality is okay, but I think they're more of a $150, $200 content line, and I think they charged an extra $50 to $100 because they were in women's fashion magazines. And so there were people who would just buy it because it was nice packaging and they had a look and a style. Whereas I think guys like, say, Frederick Malle are probably good value for money, where they're more expensive, but you're not paying for any packaging and you're not paying for any of that stuff. You're really just paying for the genius and the juice. And so I think by Rito, you were really paying an extra $50, maybe $100, that it wasn't really quite worth. But I think they sort of just figured, let's play with this bell curve and see if we can get ultimately more people who will buy it because it has a look and a design and a style and a story and an idea. But I think if my test is this: if you took the juice and you put it in blank bottles, how would it go? And so to me, if you smell Portrait of a Lady, you know that that's a $300-$400 perfume. Like there's no doubt. Like it's magnificent. You know what I mean? Like some of these brands, like you would know in a second. And I think if you took a lot of these, like Serge Lutens, half of those, they are blank bottles. They're just plain square bottles. They're not trying to trick you with anything. So I think the juice is worth it. Whereas I think half of Byredo, if you put them in blank bottles and you said these are $50, you'd go, yeah, okay, all right. But if you said they're $250, someone would go, okay. So that was always the game that I'd play at the store. I would always just spray stuff, and I would say to people, I'm not going to tell you what brand it is. I'm not going to tell you what price it is. Just smell it and tell me what you think. Do you like it or whatever? And then we'll discuss what it's going to cost you to get that. And when you play that game, you get very different responses because, they were, and sometimes they'd like a thing and then they didn't want to admit it when I told them what it was, because they'd be like, oh, I don't like that brand, or oh, I don't want to buy that, or oh, I don't like that packaging, or oh, that's more than I want to pay. So, you really, it's hard to get past it.
They do smell more on the generic side than the interesting side. So I've never really been a fan, even though I own a couple, and the bottles are stored away. They're boxed in the closet somewhere. They're not a brand that's ever really interested me much. That's not to say they don't have a fan base.
They do, but I think it's a relatively limited. Again, it's sort of 80-20. I think there's going to be 5 that are worth smelling, and you can and you know which ones they are. It's going to be Belle Freak, Gypsy Water, Pulp,
Elevator Music.
And then I like the Oliver Peoples one. Like they have a few where they'll hit a market. Like they'll be kind of a weird one, and then some people really love it. And then and that's kind of the rest of it.
I think I'll tell you which brand I would put in. Not necessarily as far down as Byredo or Montal, but maybe it's just a step or two up, and that's Le Labo. I think Le Labo are absolutely awful.
Again, I'll make the same case as like Montal, Mancera, and even Byredo. I think Montal suffers from the same. Le Labo suffers from the same thing. I think it has a good aesthetic, a good story, a good styling. The stores look a certain way, but the juice, people are buying it because it's got nuclear strength. Like they're massive, powerful fragrances, and they like the retail concept. But if you just smell the fragrance, is there nuance? Is there detail? Is there some complexity? Is it interesting? Or are you overpaying by $50 to $100 because it's nice packaging and the juice inside is really $100 fragrance? That's kind of pretty simple and basic.
Yeah. They feel very bold, but unfinished to me. Like they still need a lot of work to be done to.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I would choose most Le Labos over Byredo. They smell more interesting to me. Byredo does a lot of fresh perfumes. It seems fresh and fruity, very light and airy, which I like light and airy, but they don't seem like I like light and airy with some depth behind them in the Jean-Claude Elena style. And I don't seem to get those from many Byredos.
No, it's a different kind of take. I think the Byredo, like to me, I always picture them as like like a concrete floor in an open art gallery with like neon lights kind of buzzing. It feels artistic and creative.
Modern.
And it's like uber modern, stripped down, you know, kind of concrete, glass, steel kind of concept. Whereas to me, like, yeah, it's almost a bit like that, but maybe more slightly hipsterish, I think. I don't know.
Yeah. So, right, here's a question, and we've talked about these like 3 or 4 brands, and so if we turn it on its head, right, what brands would you say were directly the opposite? Brands that have not a very good aesthetic, but have brilliant perfumes, or are there any?
I think Diptyque is pretty good for that.
Yeah, I was going to say
the last 2 or 3 releases have been kind of like,
yeah. Tempo was a bit basic.
I'm not crazy about Tempo or Eau Capitale. You know, it was somewhat nice, but the Mint, the Eau Mint was really boring. Barbershop Mint, and it just seems very fresh. But I think before that they had a lot of good perfumes that I enjoyed. Eau Duel, I really liked. 34 Boulevard Saint Germain is a really nice,
an interesting one. Yeah,
really nice cream.
The story behind that, like where they got the 34 Saint Germain smell.
They took a graft of their store, didn't they? Like the scent of their floor, their candles, the shelves, the wall, everything, and that's pretty much what their store smells like.
Yeah, I think that's like an interesting idea, which is like when you think about perfume creation, you think of this like the process going in one direction, where like they may start with a brief or an idea or concept, but they're essentially building towards an idea. But here they basically like the art imitated the life, right? So it's like they basically took the store experience and then said, how do I recreate that as a smell? And so they basically worked backwards and said, okay, let's create a composition that essentially smells like another set of compositions.
Yeah, I love that one. I've got the EDT.
But I didn't like the 34 with the white cap. I don't like at all. It's way too dark for me.
I love the house. I've got 5. I've got 5 of them. It's not even like my top like 3 or 4 of like how many bottles I own from one brand, but I've got a real soft spot for Diptyque.
What else would you put in that class with Diptyque?
Ones that are
houses that are sort of underrated, that have really good quality scents that aren't actually.
I suppose you could put Serge Luton in there.
I was thinking them too.
That's a question.
I feel like it's been a while since I've gotten excited about any of their releases, and also the new packaging I don't like, and the prices have gone up.
Yes.
I feel like they used to be, and then now I'm not so sure. I've always maintained that, and which I'm really happy that Eugene's like started to get into this house, L'Artisan. To me, like say it's called Serge Lutan's, but L'Artisan to me is a house that is consistently varied. So they're not like, I haven't been in an issue like Serge Lutan's is a little bit the same kind of thing over and over again. But I find L'Artisan has a very wide range of what they do. I find the hit rate pretty high. Like most of them are very good. And I don't find them particularly expensive for what they are. I think they're reasonably priced. The packaging looks great. You can often get them on discount. So I think that's a house which has a pretty high hit rate. And they're pretty reasonably priced for what they are. So to me, that's a good, solid house that's like interesting and definitely well worthwhile.
Yeah, you get a lot of perfume for your money from L'Artisan. I'll tell you another one as well that's actually really good. I don't know if you've smelled anything from Molinard.
Yeah,
Molinard have
Fragonard, Molinard, and Gallimard.
Yes, the Molinard are one of the oldest houses in Grasse.
Yep.
They're like 130 years old. They're older than Guerlain, I think, or they're as old as Guerlain. They're around that sort of mark.
Mm-hmm.
They've got some great
fig fragrance, maybe lavender or something. A couple of them have popped up, in the purple bottles that people have been buying and sort of raving about them. I think, I haven't smelled them personally.
I forget which one the spicy one is. I can't remember because it's with an M, but but it's beautiful. It's not in that. It's not in the purple bottles. That purple bottle line, though, you get them at discounters. They're worth every penny of like $40, $50, $60. Don't be put off by the cheap price tag. The quality scents. The queer one. The queer one's absolutely fantastic. What's Galen saying? Galen's talking about indie perfume brands.
One that I'll mention, which I'm just a big fan of the work, is Mona Diorio.
Oh yes, I like Mona Diorio. I like one fragrance from Mona Diorio, and that's queer. The rest of them I could leave alone.
I like a lot of her line. I just think the work is really good, and I think there's real complexity and good blending and just interesting. I feel like what happens is a lot of lines, they want to paint by numbers. So what happens is it's like, if you want to buy something from Dior, we'll get you a leather, we'll get you a vetiver, we'll get you a whatever, like a rose. Like they kind of just paint by numbers and they make sure they do something. And most of the houses do, if they're a good house, they've done an okay job. Meaning if you're Chanel, you're Dior, like their vetiver is competent, their leather is competent, their rose is competent, their oud is competent, and stuff like that. So they'll cover their bases pretty well. But a lot of lines aren't. Like they'll do a good job and you find out like they have one or two that are good and the rest of the line isn't really good, but they still want to keep you in the brand. But I feel like Mona Diorio is one of those lines where if you just wore only her line, like if you picked her leather, you'd be good for leather. If you picked her vetiver, you'd be good for vetiver. If you picked her vanilla, and she basically has like one fully rounded accord, and she takes a pretty good take on like the whole accord. So I feel like if that was the only line you had, you'd be pretty good covered,
So she's not around anymore. She passed away as well. Is there somebody that's like looking after her stuff, or is it growing?
Yeah, I think a couple of perfumers. I forgot the guy's name. Actually, I contacted them recently because I had a bottle that wasn't working or something, so I messaged them. But yeah, they've basically been taken over. And I think one of her newer releases, they basically just finished it. She hadn't quite finished the fragrance, and I think someone else finished it, and then they launched it. And they've gone through a repackaging now and stuff like that. So I'm not sure that the house is sort of that active or going anywhere, but I just think I think their work is pretty good. And again, just sort of bang for buck, as in they're not cheap, but I think they're pretty good.
Right. When they first came on the scene, there was a lot of hype around that brand, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think they did a big like sampling thing, and I remember sort of everyone getting into it, and then it sort of just died off.
Yeah, queer. Honestly, queer. Just like queer from Mona Diorio is like a reference leather. It's absolutely amazing.
It's rough. It's rough though. I have a decant, and it's brutal.
Yeah, it is. Oh yes, it is. You've got to like a kick up. You've got to like being getting your ass kicked by a fragrance.
Is that the queer?
Yeah, it hits
yeah.
I have a sample of that, and it's all pure smoke.
Yes.
It's like standing right above the bonfire.
Yeah, but it's got like a touch of green about it as well. There's some green in there, and you are not the duck. I am the duck. There's some greenness in that queer that is just reminiscent of something very old, like they used to do in perfumes. Like I mean, really old in like with leathers. Not like you get leathers now. Not like the antithesis of Tuscan leather. But they're both very smoky. But that's about all they've got in common as far as leather's concerned. Tuscan leather smells like a brand new car leather. Whereas like Mona Diorio's leather, like it smells like somebody who's like had to like roll through fire to get like away with their life. Do you know what I mean?
There seems to be like a couple of there are two different takes on leather. There's sort of that version that's like smoky, sharp, acrid, sort of thing, and then there's like the floral kind of leather,
the green
like
floral,
Cuir de Rousse, and there's like. That has a bit of that, a little smoke, but it's like mostly floral, or Canise 10, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Nise 10's beautiful. Eugene hasn't smelled Nise 10, have you?
Never.
Yeah, I had it, you smelled it briefly, but it's such a big fragrance, you really gotta, we smelled it amongst 100 others, so
I can't even recall smelling it.
Yeah, and you were like, I don't want to smell it, but it got lost in the shuffle. Next time I see you, I'll bring it. I have a little decanter.
Absolutely, make sure he's covered in it.
Have any of you smelt Meissen, sir? That's Alberto Marias' brand, isn't it?
Oh, yes, actually, I have. I did smell a few of them. Sorry, these are the ones that are like the white bottle. They're like a silver metal, I think, packaging.
I remember they're rectangle or square bottles.
Yeah,
And he's got black
Simon.
and white.
Yep, Simon, one of the local guys, had bought a bunch of bottles, and he brought them over recently. I smelled them, and they're actually pretty good. I think they're maybe overpriced for what they are. He told me they were a little. I just remember the price being more than I thought they were worth. But yeah, some of them are his like signature kind of that watery, woody kind of, type of thing. And
Watery.
No, like is he the Office for Men guy? Is that him?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of like shimmery, fresh wood kind of, thing. So it's a bit of that. A couple of them are like that. But there was one good one, which I've forgotten the name. But yeah, they're okay. They're all right. Yeah.
Have you been able to try any of the Celine perfumes? Those are the ones that interest me most right now. Celine. No.
I've never tried them. You've mentioned them to me before.
Yeah.
Hello, Bob. By the way.
We talk about them in the chat, and I want to try them just because they use a lot of orris and powders, and I really like that combination.
You should try that orris. You should try that orris tattoo that I bought on
Parlez-moi.
I bought Parlez-moi, the one that's really nice. That's very clear. It's lovely. I'm not sure it's as complex. Sorry?
You bought a bottle.
I bought a bottle blind on Thomas's recommendation because it was half price at Les Senteurs, and it would have been rude not to. So I thought
you should blindly send me a sample.
I should blindly. I will blindly send you a sample if I could. Sorry, Matt.
Is Oris the one that's like wrapped in like a string kind of look?
No, the Oris tattoo is in like a clear bottle. They come in a bag.
There's some house that like just kind of launched, and they've been sending bottles to all the reviewers, and they seem to be popping up all over, and they're kind of like wrapped in string all the way around.
Never heard them. Oh, is it not John Vivatos?
No, but it's a cylindrical bottle it's wrapped in like a white string all the way around.
I haven't seen that.
They just had like a huge launch. I figured you guys would know because like they've just been popping up on all of the reviewers and all of the.
Are they sending out bottles?
Yeah. It's like some big promo. So I don't know who they are, but I thought maybe there was something to discuss about. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I wonder what else they've got in the line. The Parlez-moi is from the same. It's Michel Almerac's brand, and he is the perfumer behind Fahrenheit and other famous perfumes that I didn't know that he did, including Gucci Pour Homme 1.
This one here that we're talking about. Can you see that?
Oh yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I can't see that. I can't see the bottle. I can see the box. Oh yeah, that's the one. Yeah, they're the ones I'm talking about. Yeah, they come in a bag as well. There's like a bag inside that box. But they're really nice.
Have you guys found like just because we talked about some of the bigger like the big houses and the big brands and then sort of the niche brands, but like something I'm curious about because I was chatting with someone and I mentioned Chantecaille. So like, have you guys ever found that there are fragrances from companies that are not generally known for their fragrances at all? And like also like I'm curious if there are houses where you think there's some kind of gem or like really great fragrance. And it's a non-traditional fragrance house. So, for example, Sicily has several fragrances. So, like you probably know Eau de Campagne.
Sicily.
Like,
I have that.
Yeah.
And there's like life threads, silver and gold and stuff like that. And then, for example, Chantecaille, who is like a makeup brand and stuff like that, they have a couple of fragrances that I think are great. Calamantan, their oud is also actually really good. Like Bobbi Brown has, the beach, and then like. What's her name? Laura Mercier. Some people love her fragrances. So, like, have you guys ever found, lines that aren't really fragrance lines, but they're really makeup companies or other thing like that, but they have some hidden gem that you think is amazing and like no one is talking about?
That's a great idea. Hold on, I'm gonna go and have a look. I'm not sure. I'm sure. Well, no, I'm not sure. I might have.
I can't remember coming across any.
I'll tell L'Occitane. L'Occitane are a makeup company, and their perfumes are absolutely fantastic. Well, they were. I don't know if they still are. They always discontinue their best ones as well.
Yeah, I think Cade today.
Yes.
Have you tried the fragrances from the Ashley Olsen twins?
Nirvana, I think.
Right. I mean, for $50, I don't think they were bad. You know, you can get them.
The Bourbon one was nice.
I like the packaging. Actually, I thought the packaging looked
better. I thought those were quite okay for what you can get them for.
I think actually
Molten Brown
last time Zadig and Voltaire. Again, they're maybe more like, let's say, a John Barbados. So I don't think they're particularly like high quality. But I think the fragrance, maybe it was This Is Him or something. I remember smelling and thinking, oh, actually, that's pretty good. Like for a clothing brand, it's sort of like on par with Barbados. Like they're actually pretty decent. Like,
Yeah, I'd say Molten Brown as well. Molten Brown's fragrances are underrated. That might go back to the topic we were talking about before, but also this one, their Russian leather is absolutely brilliant. For £70, it's absolutely fantastic. And I'm just looking at it here. I can't find it.
Fresh. I think Fresh had sort of at a time fragrances that people really liked.
Yeah, Lush have got a couple of decent fragrances. Relentless is quite good.
Lush, yeah, I liked a couple of Lushes.
Yeah.
I thought Breath of God was amazing for dry frankincense.
So someone's mentioning Ferrari fragrances. So those seem to have been sort of, those.
I think they're trolling.
Yeah. Okay. And also remember Porsche fragrance. But again, I'm not saying these are like. That's a troll. I'm not saying these are particularly good, but I think it's interesting when, I'll give you an example. Let's say not particularly interesting. Ferrari, so. But then you got who was one recently that did, or say for example Bentley, where Bentley's fragrances actually weren't that bad. And so of course there's always someone who's going to like something, but I guess what I'm getting at is are there non-traditional companies that actually have better than average fragrances occasionally? And so the Bentley ones are actually pretty decent. And
it sounded like the duck almost broke a bottle back there. I heard a smash.
Oh, honestly, I just fucking dropped a bottle onto some of their bottles. It wasn't as bad as it sounded, thank God.
Lush has
You'd have heard us crying if I'd broken something.
I think they have a fragrance called Homeless, which is supposed to smell like a homeless man.
I feel like there was a big controversy when that came out. I feel like I remember when that launched and there was outrage.
Yeah, it's almost like it was done on purpose, right?
Yeah.
No, that's not offensive. What do you think about Killian?
Killian?
Yeah. Killian perfumes, not Killian the man.
Yeah.
His perfumes.
I admit I do actually really like the packaging. I think the packaging is actually really nice. I think that the line has become much more hit and miss than it used to be. Same as Tom Ford. Meaning the original line, the original launch was great. There was a story. I think they made sense. The price point was okay. It was sort of luxury, but they did a few things that was interesting. But I think now the prices have gone up, and there's all kinds of refills that you can buy for a lot cheaper. And I think the brands become very scattered, and I haven't particularly found anything newer that's great. Yeah-ish.
The last time I spoke to the Killian rep here in Toronto, she said, coming soon, or it might even be now, you'll be able to buy a Killian perfume without the box. You'll have the option if you want the box or not, and it'll be $100 cheaper without the box.
Right, so that's the problem that I had when I worked at the store, is we would sell Killian and he would have refills, and it was really hard to convince someone to buy the full packaging. It was very obvious that the 50 ml refill was $150 cheaper than the retail packaging. And they quickly realized that I'm really just paying $150 for the bottle in the box. And
that is a
refill and got an atomizer online.
Yeah, exactly.
Best incense perfume.
I think Avignon is sort of the classic. I really liked one of the Gucci ones that you and I were talking about. I don't remember which. I think it was the Gucci.
A midnight stroll.
I think that, yeah, it was either that or the free one or something. But yeah, I think that, and actually Sahara Noir, which you have, I think I think those are excellent. Those are
This is really good. Yeah, I think as far as my journey has taken me, a midnight stroll is by far my favorite so far. Just as if you want dry, smoky resins, liturgical church incense, that's head and shoulders above everything else that I've smelled. That's not saying I've smelled everything, but it's my favorite so far.
Yeah, I think Adam is great, but not easy to wear. I think it's just too literal. I think it doesn't really go anywhere. It's just too.
Well, if you want pure incense, you're gonna get frankincense, church frankincense, like cathedral.
Try incense rose. Incense rose by Tower. It's literally it dries the back of your throat when you smell it.
Mm-hmm.
But incense rose by him's probably Encens Mythique would be another pick for me as far as incense is concerned, because that's how I judge an incense, whether it catches the back of my throat or not.
The dryness, the harshness.
Yeah, like that, like literally somebody's got a stick of incense down the back of your nose or down the back of your throat, and it's like
This is another good one. Incense rose. That's the Tower, right?
Yeah, that's what I just said. Yeah. Incense rose. It's you should if you really want like incense, and then I'm sure there's another one called Incense Extreme, or something along those lines. There's another one that uses the same or a very similar incense. That one. I was going to get the incense rose from Tower, but I think it might be like Daniel was saying, it might be a little bit too lit. You've got it.
Yeah, I got a bottle.
I think I was thinking it might be a little bit too literal, like he was saying about Avignon.
I think it's much more rosy than incense, and it goes from green, very bitter, like a baby rose, and then it just sprouts into a really dry rose.
Not on me. It's the other way around. I think the rose really gets like clubbed over the head by the incense. Like the rose is trying to grow, and it just gets whacked by the incense. Do you know what I mean?
To me, it's just the rose that keeps developing, and it keeps changing over.
The miracles of skin chemistry.
I'd also say, like honorable mention, I think we've talked about Armani Privé, Wine and Songs.
Yeah, they're both really good. I do like the Bois d'Encens better than the what's the other incense called? The Satin. Satin gives me a little bit of a headache, and it's like every time I wear it, I get a headache.
Yeah, I think also the Armani line a bit hit and miss. I think there's some very good work in there, and then I think there's a few that are not so good, or just very underpowered, or just not that interesting. That line I find a bit confusing because they're sort of like the black bottles, and then there's a series that have the gold caps. And then there was like the clear bottles, which were like lighter ones. And then there's like special editions that are solid color bottles that seem to be like seasonal rotations. So it just seems like a bit all over the place, a bit hard to kind of figure that line out.
Yeah. I love coriander mixed with incense, especially in woody orientals. And you find that in kind of like the Ombre Nuit. I think even, have you smelt Le Lion de Chanel? That might have a little bit of coriander. Mitza has coriander, so coriander somehow works with incense.
I like coriander. Coriander's a nice note in perfume.
Yeah, it's a nice dry spice.
It's one of those notes, right? Coriander is one of those notes that you don't know it's there until you check the note pyramid.
Yeah, it's got
and then as soon as you smell it, you're like, oh God, of course.
Yeah, it's a funny thing also, people have impressions and ideas of like what they bring emotional baggage to the accord. And so, for example, like when I was like selling perfume, what I found was that actually mentioning the notes or the notes that are described in the fragrance on the box kind of thing to people actually didn't really help them. In fact, it often stood in the way because I would just say to people, hey, smell this and let me know what you think. and they'd smell it and they go, oh, I like that. And then I'd say, oh, well, you know, it's got, and then I try and figure out what they like about it. So I, you know, show them something that was similar or like that. And then they would smell, and I'd say, oh, you know, there's rose in that, or there's vanilla in that. And then they would say, oh, I hate rose. And I go, oh, oops, never mind. Like, but you like what it smells like, right? Right? And then yeah, I do. And I go, okay, well, there's not a whole lot of rose. I just, you know, it's just one of the notes. And you'd have to back out. But you know, like they don't know what they like, and they don't know. They bring baggage of like, oh, but vanilla is for women, or you know, like whatever idea they had.
Yeah.
You know, and so you showed florals to guys, but as soon as you told them it was a floral fragrance, then they didn't like it suddenly. You know,
the absolute pinnacle of what you're saying there is portrait of a lady. As soon as you hear the word portrait of a lady, men just switch off. You can see it behind their eyes, and if you smelled that blind, right, you would smell the rose, but the clove and the rose in there. I don't know if there's incense in it, but I wouldn't be surprised. The clove might be playing tricks, but that is exactly what you're talking about there. Portrait. If they had named that anything but portrait of a lady, it would have sold twice as much because twice as many men would have bought it as well.
You don't know how many times I've been at the Toronto boutique while Young was working there at the Frederick Mall counter, and the first thing he would show them would be portrait of a lady, and the reaction is usually overwhelmingly positive. And they'll be like, yeah, I'll take a bottle. And he'll go over and he'll ring them up and it'll be like, you know, $600. And they'll just be like, what?
Yeah,
like,
the sticker shock.
You know, with taxes, what portrait of a lady come to with taxes in Canada?
It was a lot. It was a lot. Portrait and
I think it's $550 US. So in Canadian, it's like add another 150 to that. And then taxes 13%, and you know the reactions you get are just like, you know, even
Christian D. Helenu, you have been listening to Christian D. Helenu in the sorry about your name in the chat has been listening to too much Aaron Terrence Hughes. There is a lot of rose and portrait of a lady. That's all there is in portrait of a lady. There isn't anything else.
A lot of people are mentioning like a État Libre d'Orange. Do you guys have any thoughts on the line?
Love it.
On which?
I'm looking to get a bottle of Rien.
Yeah, and we saw the extreme or I think Rien. There's two. There's the original one. There's like a darker bottle that's more intense.
Yeah, the Rien Intense. I would get a bottle of Rien Intense, but I think I would want Rien. I'm getting a decant off Greggy this week. I'm hopeful of it coming tomorrow. And if I smell that and I like that, I've arranged something with someone. I don't know if he's in the chat, but he saw the last stream we did, and we were talking about it then as well. We were talking about it, and he got in touch with us. He was like, I've got a bottle for sale if you want Rien, so I might buy that. But I'm not averse to Rien Intense either. Rien Intense is really nice. When I first smelled them both side by side, I actually preferred Rien Intense. I thought it was more like civilized.
Yeah. Any other favorites from the line, or anything you guys smelled that seemed interesting from there?
Fat Electrician's nice, but it just smells like body chorus. Cologne's nice. The Vetiver one's quite nice. Tom of Finland's really good. Fat Electrician is good, but it you might as well just get people like you might as well just get body chorus. In my opinion, it's body chorus has got a bit more to it. It's got the eucalyptus at the top, but it's a benzoin perfume in my opinion.
Do you guys think like the issue that I've always had with État Libre d'Orange is I feel like let's say like the controversy or this, I feel like they're trying to make a story out of it, and it almost gets in the way of the actual fragrances. Like I think if you just smell the fragrances, I think they're actually pretty decent, but I feel like they're trying too hard to make a, I don't know, people talk about it.
Make a hoopla. They want the attention.
Yeah, to make people laugh. They're trying to become a meme.
And it's almost like a disservice to them because they're undercutting themselves. Like it's like it's like if you make up a nickname for yourself, you know, and you're like.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, you're spot on. Memes happen by accident. They don't happen on purpose.
Yeah.
They're trying. It's almost as if they're trying too hard. Yeah, I know what you mean.
What do you guys? We're request here for Ombre Nui. What do you think about Ombre Nui?
Love
Would
it.
you recommend it for a purchase?
Yes.
Yeah, but I wouldn't really say it's an amber fragrance. As in, I think it's a very
It's
nice
not an
fragrance.
amber. Yes, that's a spot on. It's a rose perfume. Yes.
Like meaning, exactly. If you're looking to fill out your amber category, it doesn't fit in there. But if you're looking for a polished, smooth, glassy, warm, kind of somewhat sugary rose, then yeah, there's something there. But I feel like it's very refined, elegant, kind of a rose. But yeah, I had the bottle and I sold it because I kind of it didn't really do anything for me as a rose, and it didn't really do anything for me as an amber. So I kind of just didn't really know where it fit.
Yeah, for me, slightly different opinion. I've got half a litre of that stuff, and I shall never part from it.
Half a liter.
I absolutely love it. It's beautiful. Yeah, I've got the 450 ml. It's a lot of juice. I understand that, but it's also the previous formula. It's the original formulation.
I was in New York for Sniffapalooza in 2012, and I think they had just launched the the Dior Privé line at the time. It was pretty new, and I smelled the whole line. And basically, I bought Leather Oud, Ombre Nui, and Oud Ispahan. And to me, those three originally were the ones that stood out. And I ended up, I've kept Leather Oud because that old one's really beastly, and I sold Oud Ispahan and I kind of regret it. But I also sold Ombre Nui, and I just, like I said, I kind of didn't quite figure out where it fit. I think it's a very smooth, polished, well-formed fragrance, but I'm not sure what exactly the story is. Like, it's not a rose and it's not an amber, so I couldn't quite figure it out.
I like it, but it doesn't always work for me. There's some days where it's completely invisible, but it's, even when it does work, it's always been soft. It's more of a subtle perfume than something that's, bold. It doesn't have a lot of throw either. It's very close to the skin. I think
the amber in it stands for ambergris, not
it is more
not yeah. But the color of the juice doesn't help either, because the color of the juice is literally amber.
But something very similar to this in the same range is Spice Blend, which I enjoy Spice Blend a little bit more. It seems like it's a little bit more livelier, but that's just me.
No,
I think we talked about the Dior line there. I think we both agreed, like, when it first launched, there was, it was a set of them. But then more recently, like, they've just been pumping them out. Like, is it me, or didn't they, like, they released like 3, 4, 5 all at once?
I think 2 or 3 years ago, they released like 14 or 15 of them all.
Back of them all. Like, there was like Millie, or like a Cole something, and then there was the Rouge Trafalgar, and then there was Lucky, and then there was like I didn't know where to start. Like, there were just too many.
Yeah. I mean, my thoughts on Dior. I think Francois Demichy uses artificial intelligence, like literally uses AI to craft his perfumes, and then he just makes them as like a chemical engineer.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I think a lot of brands. I think a lot of brands do that now.
They feel emotionless.
Yeah. I feel like Arnold Schwarzenegger's the perfumer. You know what I mean? It's like Terminator's, like exactly. Terminator's making your perfumes. You know what I mean? It's a funny one, but I'm convinced. I'm convinced Dior are using AI, and I'm convinced a few brands are using AI as if they think it's the future. And in future, if you want a man-made perfume, you will have to pay man-made prices, rather than just getting cheap perfume. You know what I mean? That's why it's one of the reasons I'm buying up vintage perfumes as fast as I can.
Because you might run out, right?
Because I might run out of fucking good perfume and have to buy Sauvage. But in 30 and 40 years, in 30 or 40 years, right, people will turn around and say, "Oh, Sauvage, they don't make them like that anymore." It's just the way of the world, isn't it? Really.
Something else that we've talked about a bit here and there is the idea that, like, something you have to remember that, like, what used to happen was a fragrance, like a company would have a fragrance line that was launched internationally. And then what started happening was you would get these like idea of city exclusives or regional exclusives, like you only get it in that area. And occasionally you get your friend to bring a ball back or ship it, but essentially it was tailored for that local market. Whereas now I think you're getting like these international launches, but they're still sometimes geared towards other markets. So for example, like we're like, I think they call it Occidentalism, but like we think we're the center of the universe because we're in North America. But the market in like Russia or Asia or South America is actually much bigger for fragrance. And so like at first I kind of looked at the new Dior's and I'm like, okay, they're all really clean and floral. You look at Hermes and you're like, what is this new direction of all this stuff? But that stuff may sell really well in Asia, and that may be the emerging market, and that's actually their bread and butter. Like we may no longer be, we're not Europe even. Like Europe even is a different take. And so they're gearing these fragrances for Europe, and they're gearing them for Asia. That's the target market. We just get and I'm not so sure that they care what we think. I think
those are the developing economies now. China's the market.
Yeah.
The China wants everything that we've had, and they're making money. So now they have money for luxury products.
Yes, and
spot on.
And there's people in China. Like their middle class is 3 times bigger than America. Like it's just Europe is interesting, and it's an old industry there. But I think there's more money to be made over there, and I think that's why we're seeing trends of the kinds of things that maybe appeal to different markets and don't necessarily appeal to us, and they may not care.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot. I think you're absolutely spot on about Dior looking to Asia, and I wouldn't be surprised to see other brands. You can already see it as well. Do you know what I mean? But you're absolutely spot on about like a lot of the perfumes now being made for the Asian markets, and which means you can expect a lot more florals. Which means you can expect stuff to be a lot lighter because that's just the culture over there. They don't want to go out smelling like a civet cat. That to them that would be disgusting.
And that's what that question I mentioned. When I would talk to someone, I would basically ask the question, "What do you think fragrance is? Why do you wear fragrance? What do you looking to get out of this experience?" And sometimes, like for guys like you and I, the answer is, I want to smell interesting, I want to be daring, I want to push the limits of what fragrance can be, all that kind of stuff. Most people's response is, I don't want to smell bad, or I want to be like, I don't want to be out of place, I don't want anyone to notice it, I just want to be fresh and clean and approachable. So it's florals, it's clean things, it's wood,
I want to smell like a tiger's ass.
Yeah. I want to smell like a beaver's bollocks. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's just weird how everybody has different tastes, and you don't realize how big the world is in a globalized world. The world seems a lot smaller, but if you go to China, it's literally like landing on another planet. I had a mate who went to China and he absolutely loved it, and he came back and he said the first thing that he said to me was, like, it's like you might as well have gone to fucking Mars.
Dude,
he said it's absolutely mad.
I've been to China, and I can't believe they want to smell fresh, clean, and nice because China literally smells like a shithole.
Well, that's probably why they want to smell fresh, clean, and nice. Pungent East.
Within 10 meters, you can pick up 16 different odors coming from restaurants, sewers, alleyways. It's insane. Take 5 steps, and you pick up a new odor coming from somewhere. And they're not pleasant at all. It's so bizarre.
The thing is, you didn't go to. Well, they'll exactly what'll happen. There'll be a nouveau riche, and they will live in like what's happening in Brazil. There will be segregation of the population. There will be you'll have all the rich people who will go and shop at all these Dior malls, and then you'll have a middle class who will shop at like the middle-ended brands, and that's why all the brands focus their marketing on certain people. These brands aren't stupid. Eugene, you probably didn't go to those like high-end places. Like your company didn't put you up in like a billionaire's like high-rise. Do you know what I mean? Where everybody on every floor has got like fucking like the whole building's worth like probably like the GDP of a small country. Do you know what I mean? It's
the same regardless of where you go. There's a few. I guess there's a few nice places if you go into the bigger cities, but
So here's what I'm curious about. This is going to be an answer that's going to happen 10, 15, 20 years from now. But basically, if I look at the story of Europe and fragrance, you look at the development of society. Things are stinky, they're smelly, life smells bad. So the first fragrances, eau de cologne, right, is clean and fresh. The whole idea is, how do we not smell like the peasants? We have some money now,
Yes.
we're refined, we're wearing clean clothes. How do we smell clean and fresh? Because that's what it means to be rich. But, like, it used to be that being rich meant that you were fat. Like, you could be fat because you could afford food. Now it's a race to be who's the skinniest. You're like, look, I have so much food easily available that I could be skinny because I can afford to, like, cut the calories. I can get them anytime I want. So now it's a race to be how skinny you are, right? So
because only poor people eat shit food.
Basically, Europe has moved past this, I want to smell fresh and clean, to, okay, anyone can smell fresh and clean, to, okay, can you smell interesting? Can you smell rare and exotic and unusual and sexual and all these kind of weird exotic things? Because there's a sort of sophistication in the taste that has become like, look, you know that I'm a rich, regular person, so if you see that I smell bad, it's because I want to smell bad. I have that luxury that I could choose to smell bad because I can smell fresh anytime I want to. So maybe that's what's going to happen next. Basically, these guys are up and coming, and so for them, because life smells, their idea of fragrance and luxury is cleanliness, clean clothes, clean fragrance, or whatever. But as they move past that, then they're like, look, I'm comfortable with being clean. Anyone can do that. Now I'm going to go back to being smelly and weird and sort of like the Middle Eastern stuff. So I wonder if maybe that's what
30 years to wait for that. We want that now.
What's up? Unfortunately, it's not up to you.
I wonder if that's just a natural like evolution of fragrance, right? And sort of culture, right? If it's sort of, it moves from the sort of cleanliness factor to the, over the top, rich, dense kind of thing.
Yeah, and you can see that what's happened here. Every decade, it seems like the trend is changing. Look at the stuff that we had in the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2000s. It's always evolving, and that's trends, right? And you can it's what happen in the Asian market as well.
Yeah, the thing is, as well, as the world gets smaller, you're going to find population density is going to become a very important thing, and there's going to be like fights over water and stuff like that. That's already been established. But what you're going to find is that, like, how can I put it? I'm not putting it right. The attraction of China, right, is that in one city, there are cities in China with like populations that are bigger than like some European countries. There are cities in China that have got populations like 40 million, even in places like Bangladesh, right? Bangladesh, Dhaka, where Joy Amin's from, there's like 14 or 15 million people, maybe more, living in that one city. If you plonk 2 or 3 big shops, right, into cities like that, just by the law of averages, you're going to shift a lot of perfume. Do you know what I mean?
For example, like I'm not super into the like YouTube reviewer sort of community. Like I sort of lost track of it years ago. Who's kind of where? But I think it was actually Joy, who I didn't know, and I just sort of randomly, I think the algorithm recommended something. I saw a video, but what shocked me is, which makes sense, of course, but there are a ton of like non-English speaking markets of fragrance enthusiasts. And so, I always think of the classic kind of reviewer guys and, like Mark and these sort of guys who are, English speaking, and they make English videos. But I was watching videos of a guy who does English videos and then he does the same one in German, or another guy does the same one in Spanish, and they just redo the same review in another language. And the view counts on the guys from India and the guys speaking Spanish are huge.
Yeah.
I didn't know that
the Spanish language.
My algorithm, but like there's a huge market for these. And I just didn't. I guess I just have the, bias of not realizing it existed.
Yeah, the Spanish language fragrance community is huge because of like the Portuguese language one as well, because of Brazil and South America. Like they're going to be like they're going to be like huge like places for them, because people have got like aspirations in those parts of the world as well. So when, especially India's like got the caste system, and they've got people who are like they look for small things that they can like raise themselves up with. Do you know what I mean? And in this country, it's like, in this like part of the world, it's like seen as like, oh, you're like a try hard. Do you know what I mean? People who have like affluent lifestyles and stuff like that, like or like people who don't have them, who want to have them, but still don't have them, are seen as like losers and stuff like that. People in those other parts of the world, the culture is completely different, and it's going to be interesting to see.
I think sort of the point that we're sort of getting at in the big sense is actually, I think, at least for me, I feel like we have this bias that we think that we are sort of the target market, or that we matter or are important, as you being someone in Europe and us being someone in North America. But I think we're no longer the main market. I think the emerging market is India and China. I don't know if Russia is going to get there, but like, I think they're actually what's making it, and we're sort of the leftovers. I think what we see it from the number of views on the reviews, the types of fragrances the companies are putting out, where the luxury brands are building their flagship stores and stuff. It's I'm not sure it's North America anymore, or Europe.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. This is a wider political point, and I don't want to get into politics. But apparently it was one.
Just in case anyone thinks like this isn't, I'm fascinated to see it unravel, and I'm sort of becoming aware of it, and I'm realizing actually, you know what, like even population wise, like why should we be the ones who are deciding? Why would we be under the impression that we're who the market is? It may not be the case. We may not matter as much as we think we do as Europe and North America. Maybe the fragrance companies don't.
Yeah. Apparently, one of the main reasons for Brexit is that the British like establishment, the British like the people who really make decisions about policy in Britain, thought that Europe is yesterday's man. Europe is like going to become the museum of the world. And there's been a huge like, there's been obviously there's been a huge schism, but what the people who are in power wanted to do was make it so that Britain could become like a stop off point, like a trading hub for all around the world, and they couldn't do that while they were still in Europe. And what they're worried is that Europe is going to be left behind by the 21st century, and the British establishment wanted a piece of the pie, and that's why we're left. Apparently, I must admit I voted against it. I wanted to stay, but then I'm averse to change. So it's like the world is changing, and how much of that is reflected in perfume is going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think it's part of a cultural movement. I think we're seeing things like, let's call it creative arts, and so like if we were immersed in the like performing arts culture, like whether it's music or painting. Right, like there's people who are looking at fashion, and fragrance is like a subsection of cosmetics. Like it's a relatively small piece of that thing, but ultimately it sort of reflects a cultural identity. And I think, you can see things work through in fragrance where we're getting little hints because it's like sourcing of ingredients, or the styles in the target markets, or the way the advertising is done, or who the models and spokesperson, people are for those brands, or. Yeah, I think you're sort of, we see it in our tiny little world of fragrance, but ultimately all of these creative arts are reflections of culture, which is a living thing that's always moving.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. It's interesting to see, to just see how because perfume is like part of like a luxury. Like luxury brands, usually like obviously your Gucci's, your ISLs, and these people are usually at the cutting edge, or they certainly like to think of themselves as being cutting edge. Then what you'll find is that they will move about five or six steps ahead of everybody else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's meant to be sort of pushing the envelope of what's possible, or aspirational in some way of what a lifestyle is meant to be. But that's why I think it's interesting. Like, I wonder if we'll start seeing, for example, models like, spokespeople for fragrances that aren't the typical ones anymore, right? Like, meaning maybe there's going to be everything. Like, are they more progressive in terms of gender? Are they going to be more progressive in terms of, well, progressive, I mean, in a sense, right? About ethnic, right? And like, is that where it's going to be going? Because ultimately, those are actually the bigger markets, or the target markets. And that's what makes more sense to them to pursue.
I know what you mean, but I know what you mean by progressive. But it's not necessarily a political thing. It's like a social thing. Do you know what I mean? It's more of it's moving away from where we've been. But in that sense of like progressive,
I'm not necessarily putting a judgment as it being better or worse, but I just think it's because these are like artistic, creative mediums. They tend to be the kinds of things that push the envelope of a category, right? And so, meaning, I don't know if you can change the world with makeup, but like fragrance is a piece of that. Fashion is probably a much bigger driver, right? Like, you can take fashion trends and you can push, messages. Movies are probably the biggest one, right? Like, if you just think of a movie as a creation, of a story, that's one thing. But really, what you're doing is you're telling a concept or an idea. Like, you're pushing an idea that is supposed to change cultural attitudes towards certain ideas, right? Like, you're meant to come out of the movie thinking a new idea that you didn't think before, because you sort of see yourself reflected in these characters.
Yeah. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. You're articulating what I think much better than I am, I feel.
Yeah. I guess, one of the questions is sort of, when you look at these eras and you look at the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, because these are, let's say, the eras that we grew up in, so we just know them. Did these mediums like fragrance or fashion or any sort of artistic medium, were they ahead of the curve and sort of brought in the style, right? Or did they just reflect what was happening at the time, so they were staying culturally relevant? Like, were they 5 years ahead of the time, and they were the ones that made that era what it was? Or did they just make what was at the time? You know what I mean? And so, like, I'm thinking, okay, what fragrances are coming out now? Is this leading the way of what's happening? Going to happen?
I think, from what I understand about fashion and stuff like that, and I'm talking about like catwalks and stuff like that, that kind of fashion. They do their prep. They do their prep about 3 to 4 years ahead. Yeah. From what I've heard or what I believe. So I think they may be. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to affect as much change as they can, but how much effect they can have is, how much effect they can have is limited with ebbs and flows. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes they'll get it spot on,
and it creates a ripple, and you sort of get an echo.
Yeah.
It's like, the Devil Wears Prada, where the cyan blue sweater that she's wearing, right? And she walks in, they're doing the thing, and they're choosing between belts, and she kind of just laughs at them like, well, who cares? They're the same belt. And then, Miranda Priestley gives her this whole speech of basically saying, look, like, the sweater you're wearing actually was something that we chose years ago, and we put this in a shoot, and then it became a trend, and then it filtered down and down and down. Eventually, you brought it up, and at this point, it's out of fashion. But, like, we were the ones that decided that blue was a unique or interesting blue 5 years ago, and that's how you came to this decision. So our decisions do actually influence people, But I think it's hard to actually really make an effect. I think you see it in music sometimes, where someone does something in music that changes the way people think about things.
Yes,
you see it really in film. I think a lot, like where someone will make a film that people will say, okay, that changes who we are as a people, how we think about ourselves as a culture. I think perfume is an interesting. And the reason why I got into perfume is because I just didn't realize there was that much to it. I didn't realize it was such an interesting, like, little artistic creation, but I think it has very little influence on society, if I'm going to be honest. I think most people don't like fragrance. It doesn't really, I don't think you could do anything in the fragrance world that would, like, shock the culture into moving in some direction. I think a movie about, a transgender person, you're going to have a much bigger cultural impact. I think if you did a fashion
like Brokeback Mountain,
Right, like that's kind of a much bigger impact on who we think we are as a culture and what drives that kind of stuff than like fragrance or sneakers. Like I think you're gonna be hard pressed to like change the
Daniel,
mold
do you think social media has any impact on fragrances and that type of thing?
Only in the sort of marketing aspect of just sort of getting the word out there, for better or worse, like brands getting bad PR or just getting hyped up, or that sort of ability to sell them. But I don't know I don't know that the value of being able to collect people together and get like crowdsourcing, which has been useful in other areas, like let's say businesses where you have a Kickstarter kind of thing. Like, I don't know that it's really been useful in sort of figuring out trends of, say, fragrances that people want to smell, or, you know, like meaning the actual creation of perfume. I don't know that it's been useful there. I guess there have been a few lines that have been able to launch and get some traction through non-traditional distribution, like instead of having to go through retail where you're knocking on doors, like where like you get a Victor Wong who could sell directly to the public. And so he has an interesting line, but it may not do that well commercially. Like it might be hard to get that kind of a line into mainstream commercial stores. And it would just sort of, if that was his only route, it may just not, like you have to be quite selective, but it's good work, but it's a specific kind of work. And so I don't think you're going to find it at Shoppers Drug Mart. Like it's never going to get to that because it's not built for that, but he can build a business going direct to consumer and having personal relationships with him. So I think the internet's been useful in that kind of a way, but in terms of like crowdsourcing, you know, fragrance directions or concepts or anything like that, or finding the next great perfumer, like Justin Bieber put himself on YouTube and became, they found him and he became popular. Like that kind of thing hasn't happened in perfume.
Right. Like you were talking about how music might have had an influence on types or styles of perfume or Hollywood. I was wondering, you know, now with as big as social media is getting, would it have the same type of effect on, let's say, future creations? Social media will eventually outgrow Hollywood and possibly even.
Yeah. I think what's missing, though, is the sort of the irony is the benefit is that you talk directly to the consumer. Like you have a personal direct relationship. The problem is that it's a double-edged sword. Like it's unfiltered, but then you can get people who can say things that they shouldn't have said. Like you'll get Elon Musk, you'll get a Donald Trump, where they actually represent something much bigger, but they're acting as though it's a personal conversation. And they don't realize that when they say a thing, that everyone hears it, and there was no PR team in between that should have been there. Or you can get the spread of good information, but you can also get the spread of bad information because you used to read a magazine or an article that was published in a paper, or there was a news anchor, and they had done some sort of filtering. The problem is now people have access to so much information, but none of it's been filtered, and they haven't learned how to filter it either. So it's like my parents will like Google something and then click on the ad. Like they don't know how to filter what's real and what isn't, and they're given the same airtime. So you can get like a flat Earth movement. Like you could, like it's as extreme as you can get, where anything is possible. And so it's powerful, but then you get bad stuff that can spread very quickly too. And so I'm worried that like I think there's a slower pace of the dissemination of something. And so, for example, yes, it's slower to get your brand off the ground, but if you do something wrong, it's also slower to kill you. Whereas now, like, if you tweet the wrong thing, you're gone. Like, by tomorrow, you're out. And sometimes the crowd is right, but they have very little mercy. And sometimes the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater. And so, for example, fragrance reviewers don't want to leave bad reviews of their own internal group. Like if it's kerosene or it's maybe Towers beyond that, he's okay. But like Zoologist or your brand or whoever, Gravitas or something. Yeah, so those kind of things. Meaning, I think people know that they have a lot of power in their reviews or their opinion, and it's a very powerful tool. So you've got to be careful with it. So I think social media is a double-edged sword, and it can be good, but it also can be quite dangerous because of no tolerance either.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Have you guys seen brands that think have either benefited really from social media that wouldn't have otherwise made it, like wouldn't have made it at retail, or vice versa? Have you seen brands that basically just got killed with reviews, or just or someone in the company did, like I think bought number 9, right? Like there's a few rumors and stories about the person who started the company, and that bad rap has spread and is written in ink on the internet, even if it happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago. People still know those stories and maybe wouldn't touch the brand. Like, have you guys seen things from lines where you hear a rumor and that just kind of kills the deal?
Yeah.
Not really. I think most brands really thrive because of social media, and social media has helped them grow in ways probably they wouldn't have been able to without this platform. You can put something out today, and within a day, it's all around the world. I'm not sure how they marketed perfumes before the internet. It was probably much slower. Like, let's say when Andy Tower was released, there was no internet or Facebook.
Yeah, Andy Tower went to, he was a random guy, and he went to like a what do you call it, like an industry expo, and had a table with like a couple of fragrances on it. I mean, to be honest, the story that I heard, again, here's an example, like, I don't know, I read the story years ago, and maybe it's true, maybe it isn't, but the story that I heard about Creed was that someone said, like, oh, right, I remember, like, in the late 80s, like, meeting Urban Creed at one of these, like, industry, events, and he basically had a table, and he had a couple of fragrances on it, and no one had really heard of this company, and he's like, yeah, we've got, like, they're basically an old clothing company. They've got a boutique somewhere in Europe, and people kind of sniffed a couple of his fragrances and said, yeah, interesting, and they basically just made up a whole marketing story behind the line and the brand, and did the whole packaging thing, the prices, and made it all up. And the fragrances they had probably was an old book of fragrances that had been made for some people over the years, but they essentially revived this whole fragrance thing because the clothing company wasn't particularly going anywhere. And I think he just found, amongst the archives, a book of fragrances and thought, all right, maybe we can do something with this. And they hired a few good perfumers. They sort of tweaked the formulas a bit. But essentially, yeah, that's the kind of company that had to create a retail strategy by making a story that would cut through the noise at retail. And then, for example, like when I worked in the shop, we had Artiste, and we had Carlos Rivera, and he seemed like a very nice guy, and the fragrances seemed quite nice, but they just wouldn't really sell at retail. They just weren't that interesting, and they didn't really go anywhere. And maybe that kind of line actually would have been okay if you had the power of the internet and direct distribution. And so then the guys like, say, Zoologists, where I think they're benefiting from this, but I don't think a regular retail strategy would have worked for them. And not that they aren't in retail, but they wouldn't get to the size that they are without it.
Yeah.
Or guys like John Kelly, right? Like Kerosene. I think it took him a long, slow growth to get into the community, like Andy Tower, where the community really supported them. But if Kerosene showed up and tried to get into retail stores, it would have been a very slow slog.
I think it worked out perfect for a lot of these niche brands because some of them wouldn't do well at retail, where because they are a specialty, they do much better online. And, it's not looking very bright for retail. We don't know what to expect. So
but I think it's interesting.
It seems like direct to consumer is what is, and social media is what's going to save a lot of these brands and keep them alive.
Yeah, better margins, direct relationship with the consumer. Yeah.
I've got to go, mate. I'm falling asleep here. Sorry.
All right. Yeah.
I must part ways. Thank you. It's been very nice speaking to both of you and everyone in the chat.
Thanks for coming on.
Very much. No problem. I will speak to you both again soon, hopefully. Cheers.
Quack, quack.
Bye.
Yeah, well, sorry about that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess we'll see where it goes. I mean, I think it's interesting, especially like you're going through the process right now, right, where you're developing a product and you're going to go out and sell it and launch it. And I wouldn't assume that you're going to go into a retail strategy. Like you're probably going direct to consumer. And I think that'll be an interesting thing to see that play out.
Yeah, bootstrapping everything. So it's a learning process for me. at the same time.
Yeah. And anything new on your radar? Anything come up recently that seemed interesting?
No, not really. I haven't been out anywhere in a long time. I haven't, I picked up 4 perfumes this year, which are I'm pretty impressed with. But other than that, I have my eye on some Celine. I don't know why. I can't get them out of my head. But other than that, there's nothing else really on my radar. I've had a couple of people in the last live stream talk about Francesca Bianchi, to check those out. Are you familiar with the line?
No, there's just so many lines out there. Like, there's so much stuff out there to smell. And also, if you're not at retail, then like it's hard to kind of, unless you hear it through the grapevine or you see some reviews,
Francesca Bianchi. Papillon came up.
Yes. Okay. So that, right. I think I saw that in your chat. I think I don't know if you're gonna like their stuff, but it's rich, it's thick, it's dense, it's like, I think they're like extracts, like they're pretty strong stuff, and they tend to be kind of old school. I have a sample of Anubis, I think is really good. It's like a leathery, smoky leathery thing, I think, if that's the one. And then the other one is Salome, which is that's the big one, and that's like an old school, rich, stinky floral. I think that's like Salome. I don't do the religion things. I don't know. I think it's the story of Salome and the Seven Veiled Dance, and it's supposed to be the seductive thing. So Byredo has a fragrance called Seven Veils, and that's meant to be the idea of like the Seven Veiled Dance. So it's meant to be something very like seductive and tempting and sexy. So I think that's that fragrance is based on that.
I like the way it sounds. I like rich, dark, dirty florals. Yeah. So that might be a contender. I think I might like that one. Yeah,
that may be up your alley. But like I think like I laughed when I smelled it because I'm like, whoa, like, oh man, damn, like that's okay.
Was it
it's just real like aggressive, but like it's floral, but it's a really like it's a rich, raunchy floral kind of thing. So yeah, I think you may. Do you get emotional reactions when you smell stuff like do you know what I mean? Like do you get happy or sad, or like, meaning I know that you'll have moods where you'll then wear a thing because you're in that mood. But have you ever smelled the thing that caused a reaction where you smelled it and then you thought, oh, blank?
Yeah, I get moody. Like when I wear L'Heure Bleu, it puts me in this really somber mood. Happy. Does anything make me happy? I'd really have to look over my collection, but I'm sure there's a few things that make me happy. Like a couple of
interesting first impressions where like you smelled it and you were just like something happened emotionally where you're like, that was not what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, I'm sure it happens all the time. Nothing comes to mind right now. Yeah. When I smelled Vanille Havane, that was the last thing that really blew me away. I thought that was really good. Are you familiar with that from?
That's the Lanvin?
No, it's from a newer brand. I did an unboxing of it. A very dark, rich vanilla, very smoky, almost animalic, not dirty, but really nice tobacco and vanilla scent. That's, if you like things like, they don't smell like, but if you like things like Musc Ravageur, Fève Délicieuse, dark, smoky, sweet, you would like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder, like, just sort of going back to the idea of like direct to consumer and sort of and just kind of different distribution strategies and stuff like that. And also because COVID's kind of like a long-term thing, like meaning it's been a year at this point, it's probably going to be another while. So I wonder, like, I'm kind of more surprised, to be honest, also that, like, we've seen homegrown brands, right, where they're like guys launching their own thing and so like that, like Jeremy and then, Gravitas, and I forgot the guy's name, and like, and so all these people, and someone like you, like, who's going to just develop their own thing and go direct to the consumer. But unless I'm mistaken, I know that there are some lines that will send bottles to people to review, and sure, but that's not really what I'm knowing. I'm surprised that companies aren't like sending, like, for example, like Roja sent that sample pack of atomizers. Like, I'm surprised that more companies aren't doing this, because like when I worked at retail, we would just hand out hundreds of samples, and like it's such a low hit rate. Like, you know how rare it was that someone would walk back in with the sample and be like, oh, hey, I like this, can I buy it? It was an add-on to like increase the perceived value of the purchase. Like, it was very rare that it led to a purchase. But I'm surprised that the companies aren't sending out sample packs to reviewers. Like, I don't see that happening that often. Like, there are more companies doing that, because you would think they would.
I think there are. Maybe you're just not seeing it, but I think most niche brands are sending things out. It's just not to me.
Yeah.
But if you look around, you'll find it. You know, you will see.
Yeah.
Not all, but most are dealing with, you know, whoever they. I think you need to find the right fit. I don't think it's okay to send to just anybody, but I think it'd be a good idea to get to know your influencer, get to know their taste, get to know even their viewers, their crowd, their followers. See what they like.
That I think would be interesting, that unless it maybe it's happening behind the scenes, but companies sending, like, I think it'd be kind of cool to get work in progress, and basically, like, meaning, I think it'd be interesting if a company sent you and said, hey, you obviously know fragrance, you smelled a lot, you're kind of the person we're going to launch this for, here's 5 versions of the fragrance, which one do you like? Like, meaning little mini test markets. Like,
yeah,
I think that'd be kind of an interesting outreach idea of, like, essentially somewhere between, yes, we're meeting you halfway, of like, we've come up with the concept,
right,
and then it's like, okay, but we really want to make something that you want, and so we can make it with version A, or we can make it version B. Like, what would you prefer? Like, it's all the same to us at this point. Like, we're halfway there. So I'm surprised that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I'd totally be excited for that. It almost seems like the opposite of what commercial brands are doing. You know how they get like a market test for research, and they want the most inoffensive, clean thing. Yeah, I'd make great for the opposite of that.
Yeah, and they're always like, they'll test for skin type, and they'll test for, you know, like, but like, you know, how kind of movies will do like a test audience, and then they'll do a couple of different endings, and they'll do a couple of different cuts, and they'll sort of see the feedback of what people think. I don't know if that happens in the fragrance world and no one talks about it, but I'm kind of surprised. I think it'd be kind of interesting, because to me, I would crowdsource the taste, meaning the knowledge. Like, I would want to crowdsource that and send it to 50 reviewers and go, look, don't review this, but I just want your opinion on what do you think of this, or which one you like the most, or what do you think your audience would like? And then you're part of the actual creation of it. I think that'd be kind of interesting.
I think something like that, though, just really expands the time it takes to create a product, and everybody's just in the rush to get something out there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, but then they don't really speak to anything. They just create something. They just push it out there, and they rely on the sales and marketing, and not the actual product.
But if you have the money and if you have the time, I think it's a sound idea to get multiple impressions on it and feedback before you release something. Yeah.
No, I think it'd be an interesting way to go. Anything, I guess I asked you anything sort of new and exciting. Has there been anything that like you maybe used to like that you don't anymore? Is there anything like you've revisited and been like, yeah, I don't really know what I saw in that before, or it's not as good?
You know what I'm really loving now, and I've talked about this earlier. I don't know if you were here, but this Music for a While. Are you familiar with this?
I am. We actually talked about it ages ago when we did the first meetup, and I asked you because I think it was relatively new, or I had just sort of smelled it, and I said like, what do you? And my first impression was the same as yours. I thought it was too sweet. My first impression was like, wow, that's just way too sickly sweet.
I absolutely. I detested it. It was just so sugary sweet. But now I don't know if it's like, I always think once you put a little bit of air in the bottle, the fragrance opens up and it changes. It's definitely changed on me, and my skin pulls out less of the sweetness and more of the woody notes, which I appreciate. But
I think it needs that kind of earthy, peppery, sharp, sort of prickly lavender, that kind of earthy.
It's like an unconventional fougere. There's none of that shaving foam in there. It's neither masculine or feminine. Anybody can wear it.
Really good, actually. I think if you took that and added a creaminess, like a creamy talc, I think that would work too. But that would maybe be a little more traditional.
It would, but Frederick Mull, he likes to do his own thing, right? And it's very contemporary. And this is very modern. And most fougères, lavenders, patchoulis, they do have that creamy, high quality shaving foam. This doesn't have any of that. It takes out that aspect of the perfume and instead supplements this really fruity pineapple and mandarin and sugar caramel accord, which is, it sounds really strange and bizarre, but it's really well done.
Yeah, I think actually something about which I like about Frederick Mail's line is I think it's sort of like, I remember watching that video, which I'm just going to plug because I think it's a great video. There's an old BBC documentary, if you guys haven't seen. It's a 3-part series that I thought was excellent. It's a few years old at this point, but essentially it's like, it's everyone in the business. So it's like Jean-Claude Elena when he was moving into Hermès initially and making the first fragrance. It was Terry Vassar when he just got to Guerlain and he sort of had to make his first fragrance for them. It's like Christopher Brosius like making a custom fragrance for someone. It's Tommy Hilfiger launching a perfume. So it's kind of a bit, sorry, Ralph Lauren, and it's sort of it's just like what the whole business looks like. It's a perfumer going to South America to smell like exotic fruits. So, but one of the things that they said was like, it used to be that when Guerlain made a fragrance, that they worked on it for years. And when they brought it out, they knew that the customer understood that they had to get to know that fragrance, that they made it the way it was meant to be made, and they had to wear it many times to sort of understand it and appreciate it and get it. And now you get this like top-loading, effect where they put all the budget towards top notes, and it's basically what's it smell like for the first 2 minutes, they're going to buy it, and then the whole thing unravels, and it's gone, and it's dead, and it sucks. And so I feel like Frederick Mail's line has done a pretty good job of maintaining that idea where the releases are well thought out. They're not necessarily on a schedule. And when they come out, like your first impression may not be right. And you sort of have to give it some time and get to know it.
Yeah.
So it's not a house, for example, that I particularly like many of the fragrances personally. I don't wear most of them. But I think they're all the way they're kind of meant to be done. And they're interesting compositions. And it's a house that like takes time to digest. So even though it's kind of hard to retail because like you just spray and sniff, and I was such a disservice to the house because I was like, you really want to go to a Frederick Mail boutique and like take your time and get to know each of these things because like there's a lot going on in each fragrance and there's no like house theme. There's not like, oh, I get what they're all about and I like that concept or I don't. They're all completely different creations telling different stories in different ways. So yeah, I feel like that's one where they have maintained that idea. Like the first impression, you got to give it some time and get to know it a little.
Absolutely. I admire the house and, not every single piece is functional. A lot of them are concepts and I don't feel like wearing all of them. And they are just, some of them are just more art pieces, It's like going to a fashion show. You see the clothes they're wearing down the runway. They're not necessarily for day to day. People don't wear these things. They're day to day. Some of it's just to look at, to see what they're capable of, what the artist is capable of. And I feel like Frederick Mail kind of, toes that line. As far as top loading notes, a lot of that is just to make a sale at the counter, right? They'll make the fragrance smell fantastic in the opening. That way they can get the consumer to buy a product. But once they take it home, after the top, it completely fades away.
Yeah, and unfortunately, people I think they get the impression that that's what fragrance is. Like, meaning they sort of assume the fragrance doesn't last more than 2 or 3 hours, or that there isn't much of a story. It's just something that smells nice, and then you just kind of get bored of it, and you go buy a new one, or you just have to reapply it or something. And so, there are perfumes where that is the way it's meant to be worn, but more often than not, it's because it's just badly made, not because that was the story it was trying to tell.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see where it's all kind of going and moving. I'm curious where this sort of trend is moving, if there's like an international thing that's happening. Maybe we'll get international smells, that are coming through. Like, for example, the newer Dior's, I think we got a couple of like florals that were specific flowers that maybe aren't as like traditional in like European florals, like meaning sure rose, we've done that, but like right. I think there were like meaning Hermès did like a muguet fragrance, and so like that's not a common sort of flower.
Not for North America, where we prefer more woodier notes, right? It's more for our Asian clientele, and men definitely here prefer more woody perfumes. As soon as you bring up a floral, most men like They don't want any part of it. They want to run away. They have no interest in even hearing what the fragrance is about.
And I think actually that's something that when I met you, I thought was really sort of intriguing about you, because if I just look at a picture of you, you don't look like the kind of guy that would like floral fragrances. Like, I mean, if you walked into the store, I wouldn't show you that. Like, I wouldn't have assumed that at all. And then I see you speak with like such passion and such interest and such knowledge and appreciation for florals, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, this is really what it should be, which is just you just follow, right? Like, what do you like, and it doesn't matter what it is. And I think it's like it's good for people to sort of get past that, and even I think it's neat that you represent that idea that you can show and be like, look, if you look like me, if you act like me, if you think like me and feel like me, but it's, you know, it's okay to follow whatever, like follow your nose, like follow what smells good or what you like, and
yeah, follow your authenticity, you know, follow your truth.
Yeah, it's authentic, and I think that's something. I think a lot of people have this gap between who they are and who they feel like they're supposed to be or should be.
It's like they're wearing a mask.
The bigger that gap, the worse they feel about themselves, because they're not really being authentically who they are in some way.
But below that mask, they don't know who they are. I think a lot of people run around like that. But, you know, it took me a while to figure out that I love florals, because I was, you know, in the beginning afraid to go into the women's section because it's, hey, you know, this is the women's section. I'll be like, oh, sorry, you know, but.
Yeah. Oh, are you looking for a gift? You know, like, I'm like,
right.
And for me, I guess, I don't know, like, what, you know.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think it's good that people sort of get rid of those ideas of what's, you know, from gender to age to all that kind of stuff. But also find what is authentic. Like, meaning, for example, I don't really love florals, and I have no issue with the gender thing. Like, I have Chanel No. 5, and I like that. But I have exceptions. But generally speaking, I just don't happen to like florals, and it's just not a category that I enjoy those smells.
But you've tried them, and you've worn them, and you've gone through the process, and you've eliminated them for yourself personally. It's not because you heard from other men.
Exactly. I have nothing to prove to anyone. I really don't care what the smell is. You know, like, meaning I'm not trying to build some impression for the world, you know, based on some kind of thing. You know, or I can appreciate the work for what it is, like Frederick Malle, where I appreciate actually what he's made, but I don't personally actually care for most of them. But that's fine, because he's not trying to make something for everyone. He just wants someone who's going to really love that thing, and that's their thing. And
yeah, so I think for him it's more about respecting the art than moving bottles, right?
Yeah.
Which I appreciate, which most, you know, fragrance enthusiasts appreciate. At the end of the day, they want to experience something new.
Yeah.
And that's what you get from Frederick. You know, when you look at, let's say, Roja, I was having this conversation with the Duck earlier. We were kind of comparing Roja and Frederick Malle. And even though it's an unfair comparison, considering price points and the material, like, Roja is obviously much more expensive. They feel richer. They feel, you know, almost better crafted. But the thing is, as far as I'm concerned, Frederick Malle's perfumes are much more authentic. They're much more original and unique. You know, Roja's all kind of, and I can't speak for all of them because I haven't smelt them, but even, you know, with you here smelling them, they all kind of reminded us of something else from the past.
Yeah.
So they're better crafted, you know, they use better materials than what we've smelled. They're not as original to me as
they may sell better. You know?
What's that?
Like, they may sell better. Frederick Malle is a tough sell.
You think tougher than Roja Dove at the price points?
Yeah, actually, because I think they aren't a cohesive kind of a line, so it's very hard to, like, put your finger on what the line is all about. It's sort of like there's a collection of stories, and you sort of have to find the right person for that story, and so there's not a lot of variation. Like, they don't paint by numbers. Like, they happen to have a vetiver, and then they have a gourmand, and they sort of have, like, they kind of have some random things, but they're not building out a collection of a line. They're sort of just, they produce works. So it's really just like a collection of individual stories, and you kind of have to find the person that clicks with that story. And so if it doesn't click with them, it's not like they're in the Chanel house and you can just move to a different one. Like, you know, Sycamore didn't work, so now we'll try Belle Respiro. If like Muscat Jour doesn't work, there's not much else to show them. Like, You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you know what I mean? So like, it's not a cohesive story; it's a collection of stories. And so, whereas Roja, I think, there's a kind of a style to the house for the most part, and if you're into it,
they
you're
have an
in that
aesthetic,
house.
right?
Yeah. So, yeah. But I think for people like us who've sort of been around a while and smelled a lot, I think we're looking for novelty, or we're looking for something interesting that we haven't seen before, or we know enough that I think we've had this moment where we've smelled something and I've said, okay, I get what this is, but I already have something that covers this, or I've got a better version, or you go, oh shoot, okay, this is better. I'll keep this. I'll get this one and I'll sell the old one of what I have. You know what I mean? Like you know what the concept is that they're doing.
Right.
So I think for us at this stage, we're sort of just trying to find interesting or novelty, or I don't know, something we haven't seen before.
Well, both are great brands, and they both offer something different.
Yeah.
My heart just belongs with Frederick Malle for some reason. You know, I'm just really attached to the brand.
Yeah. No, I like it too. I was often at that counter selling that line because I just loved what they're about. But yeah, I mean, commercially speaking, honestly, like Creed's going to sell a lot. Tom Ford's going to sell a lot. Like they're much more marketable kind of brands, you know. But Frederick Malle is by design not that. He's not trying to do all of that, and that's what makes it different, you know.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I guess anyone in the chats, any questions, anything? I haven't really been keeping up with what people are saying.
You seem to have a fan here.
Yeah. Hi, Steph.
All right. Maybe we'll just cut it then.
Okay. Yeah.
You're welcome to come over whenever you're free. You know where I am. You know where to find me.
Sure. Yeah, I feel like I should bring you. Well, I'll bring you that Canese A10, but we'll figure out maybe some idea.
Yeah, I definitely love to smell it. Other than that, any closing thoughts? Have I ever tried Lise Mediterranee? I have. I have a bottle of Lise Mediterranee, which is a nice spicy lily, vanilla and musk. I love it for the springtime, and I find it really, that's the only season I like to wear it. It's nice, fresh floral, spicy, fresh floral.
Cool. All right. I'm seeing if there's any comments or anything like that. Yeah, I'd be curious also just throw into the chat, like that thing, I don't know if everyone was here earlier, but we had that discussion of like non-traditional fragrance brands that maybe have some hidden gems. Like I think it's maybe hard to pull something, you know, right off the top, but like if you have some brand that you think like no one ever looks at these fragrances from this cosmetics company or clothing line or whatever, but they actually have pretty good fragrances. Like I mentioned Chantecaille, where it's like a makeup brand, but actually the fragrances are pretty decent, but no one talks about them. So if you have anything like that, I'm curious, just leave a comment. I'm just kind of curious if there's interesting stuff on the radar.
Let me ask you about Brooklyn Fragrance Lover. Any thoughts? Anything you want to share?
I just didn't really particularly have any interaction, so I just don't. I mean, it's terrible to hear. It's you know, I just haven't kept up, to be honest, with all the like fragrance reviewers, and so I watched a couple of his videos here and there, but I don't know. I just didn't know him well enough to sort of say anything. But I think. Yeah, I think you guys mentioned this early on, but it is. I was just thinking about just the idea of like, just kind of like legacy and just the idea that like, in a way, there's a power to social media and this sort of modern technology, which is that, you know, I was watching a Gary Vaynerchuk thing, and he was saying like, you know, right now people are trying to piece together their family history. And there's just like fragments of, you know, a photograph of some great grandparent, or there's some logbook somewhere, and sort of some random collection of pieces, but you don't really know who these people were. And for the first time ever, as long as the internet is permanent, there's recordings and there's, you know, I don't know. So it's just this idea that like there's a legacy that lives on of who you are as a person, and you have the power to touch a lot more people than just your immediate social circle. So, like, of course, it's devastating when someone dies and everyone around them misses them or whatever. But we now have photos and we have video, and you can kind of get to know someone. It's like it only existed in like books where like an author would have died, but you're still reading Shakespeare and you feel like you know the guy and you sort of know the story he's telling and you know the times that he lived in. But now everyone is Shakespeare. And so in a way, we now have a connection. We know who this guy is. We know his story and his life and his fragrances, and when he's gone, he's still here in some way because someone could discover him and go through the journey and then realize that he's gone, but they've been with him still. And so I think at least there's something nice about that, which is that there is a way for people to sort of live on in a way that their personality and their work and their ideas are still somehow permanent, at least on the internet, and they can still reach people and influence people.
Yeah.
And
he'll be missed. He's touched it.
You couldn't do that, How else would you do it?
Yeah. And I hope that he can see or some, I wish that he was able to see how much he was loved and appreciated and admired and how much he touched people.
Yeah. And in a way, I think that's kind of as much as any of us can hope for. I think, we have kids, we make children, and that's kind of our attempt to live on in some way. But I think it's actually our influence on other people, and it's sort of like our thoughts and ideas that we put out into the world and the way we sort of influence other people. And to me, I hear those stories of, someone that said something to someone, or someone that did something, or I think to myself, someone that, sometimes, we're just talking about self-reflecting, and I think to myself, whether it's something that I think about that I said or did, and I think, it was so bad or so wrong, and I think, yeah, but no one remembers that. No one remembers that thing I did. Or vice versa, where someone said something to me, and I took that thing to heart so much, and they don't remember saying it or doing it, and I'll catch up with them years later and be like, you owe me an apology for this thing, and the person's like, what? Have you been holding on to this thing for all these years? I don't even remember doing that or saying that, but it informed so much of who we think of ourselves as people.
Sometimes,
and so,
sometimes we create these stories in our head, but I think we got to be mindful of our words and watch what we say to people.
Yeah, you never know the impact that has on someone else's life, and so I think now, it's easy for you in the moment to sort of lash out or say a thing or do a thing, whether it's a relationship, a personal relationship, or just on the internet. I think people get, they're easy to say a thing on the internet, but you read the comments after and you take it to heart, and it sort of means something, and it informs you about who you are as a person. But it also has power, I think, just like Brooklyn Fragrance Lover, where he's able to influence people and make them be interested in this journey or appreciate things, or he's influencing people's thoughts and feelings and ideas and behaviors. And I think there's a power to that, and I think there's sort of a legacy there that is actually an amazing thing. It's terrible that he's gone, but at least he's left something that can still influence people, and he's left a much bigger echo than he maybe could have if it was 100 years ago and it was just your sort of family who knew.
So I was never able to connect with him in person or have a photo opportunity with him, but eventually we're all going to end up in the same place. And this is just really a reminder of how precious life is, right? And I think the reason why it touched so many of us is, maybe for an instant we put ourselves in his shoes and thought, this could have been any one of us.
Yeah.
Right.
But at least it kind of makes it, what it made me think of too for myself was then what would happen if I disappeared tomorrow? What would people say about me?
Right.
Who would notice? How much, what influence would there really be? How long would people mourn for?
What am I
how long would the person move on to the next thing?
Right.
How much impact do I have in the world? And so, I mean this in a good way, but good for him. Good for him that he made something of himself in the time that he was able to, that he could, and influence people and made an impact that it mattered to people that he's gone, that he did something for them in some way, that he influenced their life. So that's, I think as much as any of us can hope for, that we somehow leave some sort of echo in the world. And you used to have to build a pyramid, but at least now the internet, you're somewhat sort of, I don't know, permanent in a way. So yeah, I just think it's interesting that like this thing can happen, that you can produce something and it's going to keep influencing people, whether you're there or not, but you're kind of still there. You know?
What happens when the internet's no more, though?
Yeah.
Will there be a day or a time or a place without internet?
It could happen. It could happen. Yeah. I don't know. It'll be
Probably won't be around to find out, though.
Yeah, we won't. We won't. I think. I mean, I think about that all the time. Just like on the one hand, we're living in an amazing time. Like
Right.
we're living across our, let's call it 70, 80, 90 year time span of like, we just kind of caught the tail end of like flight. You know, like 100 years ago, it was like all locomotive flight, landing on the moon, internet. Like we saw the emergence of all of this stuff. Like the world is changing in amazing ways, and nothing happened for thousands of years before that. Like we had the wheel and we had fire. Like nothing really significant happened. You know?
Yeah.
Like guns, germs, and steel. Like there's nothing happening. But now, like I think the internet is a game changer. Like electricity. Like you think, and then where are we going to be in 1,000 years? You know, like, and we're not going to see it. You know, and then
what
maybe
were people doing 1,000 years ago?
Yeah, where were we? You know, and who knows how like maybe they'll look back at. I think they're going to look back at today, like 1,000 years from now. They'll look back like we looked back at 1,000 years ago, and be like, "Oh wow, they were so like primitive."
Absolutely.
Like, you know,
like who would have said? Like the home phone is almost non. Do you own a home phone?
No, I
No.
don't.
10 years ago, you would never have imagined a house without a home phone. I haven't had a home phone in
years,
a decade at least. And I think eventually cable television is going to die too with the emergence of the internet. I don't watch TV ever. Everything I have or need is on the internet.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we're watching all of this unfold, which is just neat. It's cool to see the effects, and so you can get things like what we're doing right now that just wouldn't have existed, and you get guys like Carlos who are able to do a thing like that, and that's amazing. And you can crowdfund, the GoFundMe like campaign, and you can Kickstarter businesses, and you can do all these kinds of things that it's this connection and the technology that's really changing the world, and we're watching it all unfold. So I think it's it's pretty cool to see.
It's great. The humans are always inventing something and being creative.
Well, even in perfume, we talk about turn of the century, like synthetics, like that didn't really exist, and that's changed perfumery as we know it. Even synthetic fabrics, like all these sorts of things. Like look around you, like half of what you have are synthetic fabrics, or So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to watch.
All right, Daniel, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks to everyone in the chat and the comments and stuff. And
it's definitely good to see you again. It's good to connect, and hopefully we do it in person soon.
Sure, sounds good.
Guys, in the comments in the chat, thank you so much for coming on. We'll do it again soon. Everybody have a good night. Take care. God bless. See you soon.
Hey guys, bye.